जो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह पजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
So, welcome friends to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality, or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord, even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere truth seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com, among other Sant sources from around the world. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today, especially for those who don't already know. Well, for those who do, then please forgive my repetition. I hope to be brief. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short, and although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Saman Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. As such, we are a spiritual education centre commissioned to provide the very highest truth of Sant to those who wish to know. Thus, we simply build upon the work of the more traditional methods currently available elsewhere. In this way, our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially now in the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. But this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the holy truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religious or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy, or even mass science, are there only to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a humble servant and sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant for many years now, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord, as well as to the Holy Masters of today. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself, as well as that of the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life and creation to those who wish to know. I thus live in the Supreme Lord's will, and simply offer my humble demonstration, guidance and true knowledge to all who seek the same, especially in the modern age. Now, as a dear friend and co-traveller in this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form and instead listen to and take heed of the loving truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role to become truly noble once again by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it, no matter how wretched or difficult their life may have been. For the true Lord of all is not only compassionate for the suffering humanity who seeks the truth, but also truly merciful. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth, which I have been asked to share with you. But please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the true Lord, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord and the Holy Masters have to offer you. There is no need to give up your current faith or belief, only to listen and explore and see for yourself the further truths that are hidden within you. For true spirituality is not a religion or a scripture. It is the birthright of every human being here on earth, no matter what their current background, belief or circumstance. Now for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video, by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and the sheer number of inquiries. So, before we begin the question and answer session, I want to give a short talk about the theme of today. The theme of today is, how does a spiritual practitioner actually become enlightened? You know, this is a question that's been asked by countless emails I receive and messages. And so I thought I'd put it all together and answer this. So, my dear friends, this is a very important and relevant question to answer, because so many disheartened spiritual practitioners, especially initiates of a perfect living master who do their spiritual work diligently, and so many others who simply cannot do so, for one reason or another, become disappointed in their whole experience of it all, meaning their apparent lack of progress either way. The former, meaning the diligent practitioners, complain about a lack of progress on the spiritual path, saying that they see or hear nothing special in meditation, while the latter, non-doers, complain that they feel bad or ashamed that they cannot perform their spiritual requirements after holy initiation. Now, since this query, in one form or another, has been asked countless times, I shall take this opportunity to address these troublesome points in our talk today. To begin to answer this query, we must first establish who is a spiritual practitioner, and then what spiritual practice actually means and does for the participant. We must then finish by explaining why it is so important for a human being and what those particular practices actually involve and do for the spiritual practitioner. So let's begin with who are we referring to as a spiritual practitioner, and what are the categories of spiritual practices involved here. In simple terms, there are only two categories of spiritual practitioner among human beings today. The most common by far being religious or mindfulness practitioners, and far less common are the spiritual or soulfulness practitioners. The former refers to concepts, beliefs, and worships, and the latter refers to elevating conscious awareness beyond mind and maya via high truth bhakti or devotion. Now, in the present age, the vast majority, around 90% or more of human beings on earth, easily recognize and eventually even accept the belief concepts of science, philosophy, or religion, which all have their roots in mindfulness, whether emotional, intellectual, or somewhat spiritual. Indeed, the rational or irrational mind is thoroughly championed in this concept of belief systems. Incidentally, belief systems themselves, by their very nature, do not require proof, verification, or first-hand knowledge of their ideas to be believed, only faith and trust in them. Yet because this idea of following a belief system without direct proof is actually accepted by the vast majority of human beings today, who in truth simply want to belong to some accepted group in society in order to best fit in with a popular society, to they somehow want to actually feel special or blessed in some way, or even to feel especially chosen, one may say. This readily appeals to the ego nature of the mind, a habit that drives the vast majority of human beings into action, whether they understand it or not. Now, what makes these ideas so appealing is the fact that they are reinforced through having an established series of doctrines and rituals, coupled with group activities and person-centered ideas of good and bad, right and wrong, or superior and inferior, etc., that all relates to the individual character or jiv that one is assigned in this life as a participant. Now, looking at this from the higher perspective, it is a truly impressive system that binds the followers together while also dividing those same followers into competing groups with subsequent conflicts, each one proclaiming that their belief system is the right one. Now, isn't that a remarkable thing? for so-called intelligent and rational human beings to do. Yet in everything else concerning their worldly dealings, they claim to require proof to be believed, though admittedly an emotional appeal carries weight here too, but again without first-hand experience or proof, of course. Now gossip, rumour or hearsay is a perfect example of this irrational behaviour, based upon a delight for sensationalism, or for being in the know when others do not know, making those gossipers special in some way. Now all this behaviour, the true saints or true knowers tell us, that this is the work of the ego mindset, shaped by the inherent sanskars or habit preferences that appeals to the followers of the belief system. The trouble is that for the followers of these belief systems, to question such beliefs and habits undermines their whole existence in life and even their purpose as a human being. Therefore, the vast majority of these human beings, do not readily change their view of life and existence, else they will feel empty within, unless that emptiness is filled with something else that serves them even better. Yet indeed, there are some who naturally seek a deeper or more complete understanding of life and existence, due to something stirring deep within them, that even their own mind cannot fathom. And these are the ones who are ready, willing and able to change their life for the better. Meanwhile, around 10% or less of human beings in the world today naturally shun religious, mindfulness or materialism concepts as being the ultimate truth, and thus seek a deeper, more complete truth of the reality of life and consciousness that they are experiencing. But such individuals do not at first know for sure why that is the case, mentally speaking, but seem to just feel it intuitively. Now this intuition comes from the soul, without judgment or reasoning, especially when it comes to spiritual truth seeking, but is initially hijacked by the developed mind, where it is used to become critical or cynical of the world at large or of others within it. This cynicism can initially take a turn towards judgment and open criticism, without any evidence or first-hand experience to back it. In this way, those afflicted by this form of negativity become egotistical and often vocal, even to prove themselves to others in their judgment or condemnation of the workings of the world or others, rather than being neutral about it all, simply considering all as equal in the eyes of the Supreme Lord, and considering all as divinely inspired, thus serving a divine purpose in this world. Such individuals can at best hope to become indifferent, yet still feeling that they know everything about spirituality, or feel superior in some way because they can quote or access parafashion the sayings of the wise ones they follow, while criticizing others whom they disagree with. This habit is termed by the Holy Masters as spiritual ego, which means the mind has temporarily hijacked the intuitions of the soul and have converted them into mindful judgments and cynicism, with an underlying superiority theme. Meanwhile, for the 3% of the 10% of spiritual seekers who are indeed truly intuitive in a pure way, having long subdued the eye of the ego, which has thus been relegated to act as a servant of the body and as a playmate for the soul. They are the true spiritual seekers and intuitive ones that the saints and holy masters refer to so affectionately. As such, they are fully open-minded, tolerant and wise, seeking only the Lord at work in the great play of creation, even just intuitively at first. Judgment, criticism, condemnation, or irritability plays no part in their dealings with the world, for they are too absorbed in their own pursuit of high truth, with an all-abiding love or reverence for that truth, and for all who know it, to see anything else worth bothering with. All other matters or ramblings of the world just fly past them without entering their heart. Therefore, they have no time or inclination to offer judgment upon anything, nor do they criticize the world or others intentionally, for they intuitively realize that all are struggling just like them, and all have a part to play in the great play of creation. Indeed, they may know this long before they actually see it for themselves, which is called an intuitive awakening in high spirituality, and is the real intuition referred to by the perfect saints or holy masters past and present. Yet, sadly, many get confused by this pure, indifferent to the world intuition when compared to the imperfect mindful intuition that results in judgment, condemnation, or anger even. This delusion by the mindful ones must be overcome in order to make real spiritual progress. This is why Babaji of Bias and Ishwarji of Isha both caution against embracing spiritual ego. But so subtle is this mindful adoption of intuition that without experiencing real knowledge firsthand, one can easily fall into its trap, believing it to be real. Therefore, to summarize this point, mindfulness practitioners favor religions, philosophy, or science in comparison to purely spiritual ideas, extending their judgment and critical reckonings even for initiates of a holy master, which collectively make up most of the truth-seeking humanity we see today, while truly spiritual practitioners, who favor true spirituality and the high truth in their journey through life, and who are fewer in number, simply withdraw from mainstream society, remaining largely silent about this matter. As such, in any lifetime, sincere and truly earnest and honest spiritual truth seekers are hard to find, because they mostly remain silent and withdrawn in their pursuit or practice, even after enlightenment, only speaking about it all when asked to do so for the benefit of others. Indeed, they seek no glory for themselves, for they are fully immersed in their quest, or are fully accomplished in their knowledge. Now, if one is fortunate enough to come into contact with a true knower of the high truth, one should try to make it the best of it, even if that knower doesn't have the role of being a holy master or similar. They can still help to rightly direct sincere spiritual inquirers in their spiritual journey, and even offer guidance and support along the way. Yet all this is determined by the divine script, or the decree of the creation, and is not in the hands of either the inquirer or the knower, who are both just playing their part in creation, whether they realize it or not. To finalize this point, it must be made clear that both categories of spiritual inquirers have their inquiry originating from their actual soul in Parbrahm, meaning the third realm of creation, and not their adopted mind. However, the religious, philosophical, and science expressions of the high truth regarding God, life, and creation is formed in the universal mind region of the karmic realms, that each individual mindset that is attached to the soul, projected into the karmic realms, initially adopts as an imperfect truth of it all, and thus the minds of these followers practice religion, philosophy, or science or even spirituality at first, based upon mindfulness ideas, powered by their soul. As time passes, and the projected souls become less interested in the karmic realms, they gradually start to turn away from lower or illusory creation and begin to aspire to go back home to their true source in Satgurus, dragging the weary mind along, initially so. The mind as a result becomes somewhat spiritual, yet still reacts emotionally and judgmentally to the ways of the world and those within it. Meanwhile, the true spiritual practitioner, or Atma, meaning soul, that is attached to the mind, is the one who drives the entire experience through creation, while for those who only recognize their character or jiva as their actual self, simply follow the various practices created by universal mind, from the level of Trikuti in the causal realm of creation downwards, until they get fed up of the whole play and thus begin to turn away from the show. So, having now established what a spiritual practitioner of the high truth means, let's now examine what true spiritual practice actually is, while in the human form, according to the Supreme Lord or the Holy Masters in every age. So, with particular reference to the high truth seekers of Sant from the Supreme Lord or consciousness point of view, let's have a look at what truly constitutes true or noble spiritual practice. In one's spiritual journey through creation, having exhausted the belief systems of religion, science and philosophy, one will naturally feel inclined to seek a more complete and satisfying solution to the call of spiritual seeking. To summarize this point, there are only two practices that support each other, much like the wings of the soaring bird high in the sky, termed Hansa in Eastern philosophy, that any true aspirant of high truth spirituality should concern themselves with. The first practice is pious or noble living, as it is termed in the West, or true Dharma, as it is termed in the East, a subject that is particularly referred to by the Holy Masters past and present, in order to reduce the number and severity of karmic and mental obstructions blocking the way of spiritual seekers. Now, despite the numerous expressions of this ideal existing today, written as laws, commandments, vows or precepts, etc., this entire practice can be summarized by a single sentence: do no intentional harm to any sentient being, including oneself, nor to the planet that serves us. But what does this really mean? Let's break it down briefly into its component parts. The first part to understand is the idea of trying one's very best not to cause intentional or unnecessary harm to others in this world, whether plant, insect or animal, including our fellow human beings who all share their life with us here on earth. Now, this rule of right living, known as Dharma or pious duty, applies to all our fellow human beings in this world, who are all struggling themselves just like you, to not only make a good show of this life, but to accomplish happiness for themselves and to make their life somehow more meaningful. Therefore, a true spiritual practitioner should sincerely try not to add or delight in any further difficulties to those they meet, who are already burdened by their own karmas, but instead should follow the idea that with anyone we meet or connect with in life, they should always be better off for the experience of having met us, and not be intentionally distressed or harmed in any way. This idea applies to all other life forms too, whether plant, insect or animal. This even includes one's own self. So let me elaborate briefly by explaining the various dealings a true spiritual practitioner would have in this world in order of priority. The number one priority is this: by simply understanding that all of one's friends, family and associates who one has to deal with at times are themselves struggling in life in one way or another, whether openly or secretly, just like you. Their struggles may be different to yours, but they are unhappy in their struggles just the same. As a result, and just like you perhaps, they will make mistakes, or they may behave badly in your view. But this is not without reason. It is all part and parcel of the dramas of karmic experience within the illusory realms that is dictated by karmic law, which is an exacting retribution for former life activities. As such, in human terms, they may have physical or mental health issues causing inner turmoil that results in difficult behavior. They may also have difficulties in some other way, or are unable to perform their obligations well, that makes them a burden to others. They may have bad luck in certain areas of their life, causing them distress and thus poor decisions. In addition to all this, they may have limited education, limited access to positive or inspirational influences, and may even be facing self-doubt or self-esteem issues that causes them to behave badly in some way. So having realized this point, how should a true spiritual practitioner, aiming to attain higher states of awareness, with the resulting inner calm, joy and nobility that naturally accompanies such progress, behave towards others? Well, the answer is very simple. Once one can accept that all others around them are struggling in life just like they are, in one form or another, then an understanding spiritual practitioner who is ever aware of this fact and is thus ever on guard against harsh reactions to others in one's life, simply because throwing fuel into a fire only makes it grow, not diminishes it, allows a noble reaction by the spiritual practitioner and subsequent benefit to all. In fact, by being a good Samaritan, as the saying goes, whether by avoiding any conflicts with others or by simply calming others down with positivity or offering practical solutions if possible, or even just by listening to them, unburdening themselves upon you, and then reacting appropriately, meaning always with kindness, patience, tolerance and understanding, then this should be the way forward for anyone truly aspiring to attain pure spiritual progress. You see, by realizing and accepting the apparent faults of others, that is driven by their personal circumstances, one should always strive not to add more difficulties, whether through criticism or action, to those already burdened with their difficulties in life. Indeed, by becoming a noble human being, one removes the initial obstacle to their spiritual progress. By treating others as you would like to be treated yourself, without seeking praise or recognition for such, simply because you can embrace the ideal that doing right to all, simply because it is the right thing to do, gives peace of mind to all concerned, and allows the spiritual practitioner to create a positive environment around themselves that is a pleasure for all to experience, including oneself, which also aids that one in achieving successful meditation or devotional contemplation. That is immensely helpful in calming the mind and protecting one from karmic harm, as well as bringing peace to oneself, is the real benefit of following this ideal. You see, since all are dancing to the tune of their karmas, without choice in the matter, and since all that one sees being played out in front of them is not what it first appears to be, and is in fact part of the illusion game of interplay anyway, that tests our resolve to act and think rightly or wisely about it all, then what is the benefit of thinking or reacting badly in karmic terms to what we experience in our life? Our bad intentions or actions will simply come back to us under the law of deed and consequence, which none can escape whilst living in the karmic realms. If we really want so-called justice, then we have to go back to the very beginning of time, when all the stories and scripts were decided, in order to create the great play of illusion that we see today, scripted in sequential or chronological order, to then realize what the absolute truth really is regarding what we are actually seeing or hearing, etc. Since we cannot do that yet, it is simply arrogant for us to cast judgment upon others without a fair hearing of all the facts at play. Indeed, such an absurd and proud judgment simply begets the same judgment upon the judger in time, and so the cycle goes on until it is broken by the wise. As Jesus the Christ famously said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged by the same measure again and again." He also said, "Forgive others for their transgressions, for they know not what they do." He further says, to love your neighbour as yourself, for you are all brothers and sisters in this world, simply having a human experience. So if we can embrace our human nobility, then success in spiritual practice is assured, say the Holy Masters. This path to human nobility should be the hidden passion for spiritual success in one's dealings with this world. Similarly, the concept of self-judgment or self-harm also applies to ourselves. As the holy books tell us, we are the temple of the living God, and if that's the case, and we claim to love God or cherish life, then how can we abuse ourselves with gluttony, bad habits, bad company, or in delighting in depraved or negative movies or music that assaults our mind and senses with negative or harmful imagery or energy, while at the same time trying to practice spirituality, such as holy meditation or divine contemplation, and expecting good results? When the results do not come, we start complaining about it all due to our ignorance of the path to making spiritual progress. You see, if we also abuse ourselves or our body in some way, then there will be a negative consequence in time that we will not like. So just respect yourself too, to prevent mental or physical issues in the future. Even if you cannot do this perfectly, at least strive your very best to do so, and your failings will turn into successes just because of your noble endeavour against the odds. The second priority or rule to follow is, by adopting and maintaining a healthy vegan diet, we can avoid direct or indirect killing or causing harm to other life forms who share this world with us, and are indeed struggling also to simply survive and get through life itself just like us, albeit in different ways. Nevertheless, the fear and struggle is just the same for them as it is for you. To get an idea of this fear and struggle that the lower life forms experience at the hands of human beings, let's imagine for a moment that if an advanced alien race were to visit Earth and think of us as mere food when alternatives exist, or as insects upon the earth that are of no consequence to them, and which therefore can be exploited and abused to suit their needs or whims, then how would we feel about it all? I think the answer is obvious. But now imagine that a few of these aliens are sympathetic to the humans on Earth, and thus try to protect or shelter them from the harm their fellow aliens try to inflict upon us? Would we not be profoundly grateful to them, and thus more happily coexist with them? In translation then, being at the top of the evolutionary ladder that we human beings represent, shouldn't we extend a hand of compassion to all others less evolved than ourselves, and not abuse our privilege of human birth for the sake of greed, gluttony, or a lust for power? Isn't it a common decency to respect all sentient life forms, just as we would want an advanced alien race to respect us? Indeed, holy masters say that selfishness in all its forms is the lowest form of depravity that human beings can entertain, because selfishness alone leads to all forms of depraved attitude that we see today from the Lord's point of view. This includes intentionally or willfully killing or harming other sentient beings, whether for food or for personal gain, willfully or knowingly harming others for personal gain or malice, causing negative judgment upon others when the true Lord does not, or willfully disregarding the welfare of others or the planet that serves us, simply because we believe that we have greater power, right, or authority in our minds to do so. Now, these negative activities, born out of selfish desire, is the root cause of all the depravity that human animals, not noble human beings, justify to commit all the crimes we see today, which, incidentally, also includes the administration of so-called justice that is performed in the name of so-called righteousness, which is simply an excuse for cold or hateful revenge, that is due to a lack of noble understanding, a lack of kindness or compassion for all concerned, or is born out of simple arrogance that in truth helps no one. Sadly, this judgment principle of condemnation, due to a lack of understanding of the interplay of karmic life, is a lower human trait that in years to come will be seen just as barbaric and incomprehensible as we see bloodlust or ancient human sacrifice beliefs today. Instead, by restraining one's selfish desire for so-called justice and righteousness, simply by keeping away from it all, or better still, by extending the hand of genuine help, friendship, or even love, one can better serve and support all concerned in far better ways than promoting negative cold justice, which even historically was known and now denounced as wicked bloodlust. Similarly, uncontrolled or selfish lust in the absence of true love, or a gluttony for food or possessions due to a fear of missing out, or embracing envious greed at the expense of others due to a perceived survival need, or the practice of willful pride while disrespecting others, born out of a low-level thinking that has no kindness, love, or nobility behind it, are all expressions of human depravity or ugliness that truly noble human beings universally shun, including the holy masters, perfect saints, and noble mystics past and present. So how can a spiritual practitioner who happily behaves with such recklessness or depravity truly expect the Supreme Lord to bless them with the grace they seek, even if they boast of their attendance to meditation, seva, and satsangs? It is a simple law of creation that intentional harm or seeking to intentionally harm others carries consequences for all, even if performed under the banner of so-called justice, which in truth is nothing more than simple cold revenge that actually helps no one. The other part or wing of this idea of pious or noble spiritual practice is to seek the high truth, no matter what the cost. Now this practice is what separates the curiosity seekers from the sincere truth seekers. The first part of this statement refers to the idea of actually wanting to know the high truth of God, life and creation, deep within oneself, as a natural need, not as a mere curiosity. This seeking level determines whether one is destined for religious, philosophical or scientific progress, or instead high truth spiritual inquiry, such as Sant. Meanwhile, the second part of this statement says, no matter what the cost. Now this part is only for the brave, as Guru Nanak famously said, and separates the more earnest seekers who are ready, willing and able to practice Sant principles in its entirety from those who dare not do so or lack the aspirational quality to really know the high truth. The second part of this statement is the most difficult to follow, which most spiritual practitioners struggle with. Now, seeking the high truth is more of an attitude rather than a physical practice, because it involves engaging our rebellious mind as best we can in pursuit of our spiritual goal, even under protest, while at the same time furnishing the mind with constant reminders of our spiritual goal through various means available to us. You see, our diligent attendance to this way of thinking itself brings beneficial consequences or grace upon us. So, if we can do so, then embrace this ideal with all thy heart to show our best intentions. That alone is enough. By listening to high truth satsangs, reading noble Sant literature, keeping noble company, and attempting faithfully to practice our meditation or devotional contemplation as best we can, then that is good enough until we can do better. And then, when the pull or calling comes within us, then we will have no choice but to answer it. And then also, all these recommendations will become applicable more readily and more natural to us. Our human attitude, therefore, is an obvious marker of our human nobility or spiritual progress, where a noble attitude begets grace, such as a peaceful mind or an accomplished spiritual practice, while an animal-like or ugly attitude begets karma, such as suffering, turmoil and struggle. But what's even worse than that are the consequences of all this negative attitude or behavior in one's afterlife journey, especially for an initiate of a holy master who should know better. Yet a simple shift in attitude can fix all this. Hence the reminder given by, say, this satsang, and by the holy masters time and again, to support the objective of human nobility and spiritual accomplishment in place of worldly acquisitions and worldly reverence. In summary then, a true spiritual practitioner who aspires to make real spiritual progress in this lifetime should refrain from causing willful harm to others or themselves, nor take delight in watching others, even in movies, doing so, no matter what one's so-called justification may be. In absolute truth, everyone is ultimately innocent, for they are simply dancing to the tune of their karmas, according to the script allocated to them. And so no one, meaning the imposter character, is actually a villain, or no one, similarly, is actually a saint in the eyes of the true Lord, who is, after all, the origin of the entire illusion of this great play. If the true Lord doesn't judge like that, and nor does the true Lord's holy representative, known as a holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic, then how can we justify such negative behavior and then hope to live a happy and meaningful life for ourselves, with great spiritual progress at its helm? So one's attitude to life itself is the best measure of one's spiritual progress. To account further about all that we see, it is interesting to note that by nature, human animals, rather than noble human beings, have negativity bias, as psychologists aptly put it, at the heart of their worldview, which is now recognized and coined by modern science. This simply means that most human beings are wired to more readily remember events in life or to believe ideas that are largely negative rather than positive. This is why the most prevalent or sensational programs featured on television or in the movies with the most hits or likes are overwhelmingly negative dramas, cynical news programs, true life crime or disaster stories, and glorified tragedies even, rather than feel-good fun-loving stories or informative or educational natural life documentaries. Though these latter themes do still exist here and there, which are favoured by a minority of human beings as their preferred entertainment. As such, negatively biased human beings always see the worst viewpoint of society or individuals in preference to understanding the real truth or meaning there, and thus delight in spreading negative rumour or gossip to boost their standing in society. However, those who are spiritually evolved are always positive in attitude and open-minded, strongly favouring upbeat or good-hearted stories without cynicism. They generally shun negative dramas, gossip or worldviews. And from a spiritual point of view, this more pleasant or positive attitude is a key sign of true spiritual progress. Now, finally, let's look at how spiritual progress is actually made from the higher-than-mind perspective. In truth, it is quite simple, yet truly remarkable to realize that spiritual progress is not at all driven by the mind or the character of the one being seen to do so. True spiritual progress starts at a level of Parbrahm, by the soul itself, and this is how it actually happens. After a long period of time, in terms of karmic time, the soul begins to lose interest in the fake adventure it has become associated with, due to the pull of the Supreme Lord in Satgurus, and starts to turn its attention away from the karmic realms, much like one sitting in a revolving chair, who then turns slowly to see what is behind them. As the soul turns its attention away from the karmic realms, the mind that is attached to that soul slowly becomes fed up or disheartened with the world that it so cherished before, and begins to seek answers as to the reason why it feels the way it does, without yet knowing the process driving this change in attitude. As the soul continues to turn away from the world, through withdrawing its attention back into itself at first, and eventually becomes more focused on its true home, spiritual progress is made. This progress is credited by the accompanying mind, which the world recognizes as human nobility. And as the soul eventually turns completely away from the world, even the character one is playing loses interest in the material world and seeks to go back home to its own source in Trikuti, known as Brahma. This whole process may take several human lifetimes to complete, but in the eye of the soul, it is but a blink of the eye in its moment of experience. What takes several million years to complete in earthly terms is but a blink-eye moment in soul terms, which is why the soul makes no complaint about the whole process and ever remains pristine and unharmed by the whole experience. The fascinating consequence to all this is the fact that after so many lifetimes of effort and struggle, spiritual practice, and the attainment of visions and sounds, holy sounds, etc., by the associated mindful character to become noble and worthy of salvation itself, it is eventually discarded like an old rag in Brahmand or the causal realm, left to remain dormant in Prakriti, never to be resurrected again. Only the pristine soul continues its withdrawal, a journey back to its true home thereafter, moment by moment, rather than in terms of time, with no regard for the character mind that it once so fervently associated with. That is the remarkable truth of the matter, which once witnessed becomes a true wonder of the marvel of creation to behold. When the pull of the soul becomes complete, the soul's attention becomes fully withdrawn back to its source in Satgurus, ready for another adventure into creation, or, after several such adventures have been performed, seeks individuated annihilation through merging completely with its source to become whole again and truly complete in perfect happiness, never to return to any form of creation thereafter. It is a state of existence that is incomprehensible to the human mind. Now that ends the talk for today. So let's continue with the question and answer session for today.
Thank you. So the general overarching theme regarding the questions today is living the spiritual way of life, and also we're incorporating questions related to the talk you just gave, titled, How does a spiritual practitioner actually become enlightened? So I've got a first question regarding suffering. Why do some people suffer from anxiety and depression more than others? While being on a spiritual path is supposed to help, why does it sometimes feel like the anxiety and depression still takes over a person's life anyway? Most importantly, how can someone stay focused and avoid letting these struggles completely take over their life?
What one must first realize is what is the driving force of everything in this creation. What makes one person suffer anxiety, depression, another suffer ill health, another suffer poverty, another suffer good fortune? This is all driven by karma, the law of karma. It is not something that they have done today. It is what they have inherited from the past. So the manner in which one suffers is determined by what they've interacted with in the past. So for example, anxiety and depression or mental ill health is usually derives from the fact that they tormented or tortured others mentally, abused others in a former existence. And therefore now they are paying the price for that. But because they cannot recall why they are depressed, why they have low self-esteem, why they're disheartened, they blame the world around them, or say that this has happened to them, and maybe it's because they don't have enough money, maybe they're not good looking enough, maybe they're not successful in their career or their job. When actually the truth is that so many others are like that, but they're go-getters. They seem to have the drive to just carry on regardless, brush aside their so-called depression, anxiety, and just get on with it. So it's not something that's a universal given, that somebody has to have depression or anxiety if life doesn't work out for them. No. It is what they bring with them. So they cannot point a finger at anyone else other than themselves. But what should they do about it? They should try to get relief. The obvious way to get relief is, for example, some healthy lifestyle changes that makes them feel better, affects the mind and the well-being. So healthy eating, exercise, and all these things are known scientifically to aid these things. Similarly, seeking good company, having a positive environment around them, all contribute to their welfare. So if they are that concerned, they should seek all these positive activities to counter their negative traits. And in time, eventually, the negative traits wear off, they disappear. And if they've built up this reserve of positivity, they are guaranteed a positive future. Because one thing we know about karmic law is it exacting justice. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Whatever you do this moment, you may not get immediately today or the next day, but in time you will get it back. So the whole point of trying to be a noble human being against all the odds, or trying to do your very best, which is another important point that the saints mention, because people think unless you accomplish living rightly so in a positive way and following all the spiritual principles, you will not get any benefit. But that's not true. There is so much against all of us to accomplish this ideal that's written in the books. Be a pious and noble human being at all times. It is actually very impossible for most people to do. Only the very few, Guru Nanak talks about the 3% of the 10%, will actually attempt this, and only 1% of the 3% will make it. That's how rare it is. However, there is a get-out clause that the saints have explained, although they don't dwell upon this, because on a public setting it will excuse all kinds of things. They say that if you sincerely and wholeheartedly attempt to change your attitude for the better, even if you fail time and time again, they will turn your failures into successes. That is the promise of the saints for initiates of a holy master, because they know full well your circumstances, the role that has been given to you in life. All they want is your attitude to change. It's the attitude or intention behind anything that makes a difference, not the doing of it. The doing of it is already scripted, but it's your attitude. So let's say you perform an evil deed, but you hate it inside, you regret it most sincerely. It is cancelled by the Lord. Because although you were committed to perform it because of past karmic association, you were the one who had to do that in society. The Lord also knows and recognizes the fact that you are now turning yourself away from all of that, disassociating yourself, disliking it so immensely that you appeal to the Lord for help. And although the Lord cannot interfere right this minute, a note is made in your record, a tick, to say yes, in the future this help will come once this little episode is cleared. So it's actually quite nice to follow a spiritual path, because it gives not only perfect understandings of the workings of karma, but also gives a solution that we can enjoy, not to be too harsh on ourselves or on others. Because remember, if we're experiencing all this, so are others. So when others offend our senses somehow, we forgive them also, because we know we do the same in other ways. Maybe not the same way they did, but in some other way we offend somebody else. Yeah? So how can we point a finger at anybody? As they say, when you point a finger at others, 4 fingers are pointing back at you. That's the nature of pointing. So really, a wise person would say, we want to live the most peaceful life possible. Therefore, keep out of harm's way. If you don't like what you see, what's going on, turn away from it. Don't judge it. Don't become an activist and try to harass everybody. Just keep away. This world is running its course already, predetermined. There's nothing you can really do to change it. But your part in it can be either a blessing or a curse to all who share this life with you. Why not make it a blessing? Why not act nobly and do the right thing so that all can benefit? Not just you, but everybody else. That would be nice. But having that intention is good enough. And if you make a mistake, then okay. Beg the Lord, please help me to be stronger next time. In other words, you're constantly trying to improve yourself, even if you fail miserably every time. Then all those efforts will be counted in your favor when you are on the spiritual path. And this is something that people don't realize when they feel that they're not getting anywhere or nothing's happening for them. All the things they're doing nobly are mounting up in the bank, money in the bank. It's just that they haven't got a credit card yet to use it. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of questions about the soul. When an individual soul makes its way back, does it await another soul to merge into in order to cross the void into Satchkhand? I remember Ishwar Puriji referring to this as soulmates that were split from, meaning from one soul to two souls for the male-female experience.
Well, the split does occur, that the one becomes the two, the duality, because when the soul projects its attention into the karmic realms, where duality reigns supreme and the law of karma as a result, then yes, the individual soul can become either male or female, or actually has both qualities, and in each lifetime it may become a male or a female depending on what is required to undergo its story. That is a separate process altogether of how male and female come about, and the whole concept of duality. But I think the question is talking about soulmate. Somehow you meet a soulmate in just before the void, meaning the sun, at the top of the causal realm, and you merge with a soulmate, and you become one again. That is male and female soulmate merged together to become one. That's not true. That's a nice story, but it's not how it works. But interestingly, this concept of soulmate does occur with your master, because in order to cross the void into Parbrahma, you have to merge with your beloved master. So one could say then, this is not a male-female thing, but the concept of having a soulmate, or a guide or an accompanying father, let's say, to cross the void does exist. Because the only way to cross the sun into Parbrahma is to merge with your own beloved master. There is simply no way of leaving the mind behind and reaching that higher level of existence without somebody pulling you from the other side. You have no ability to push anywhere. So you would remain eternally in Brahman, or the causal realm, were it not for the master. And how the master serves you? Because you've built up this love and devotion over several lifetimes. You become so enamored of your beloved that you see nothing but the beloved before you. You want to be like the beloved. In fact, every quality about them you want to be your own. As such, you lose yourself in that beloved and merge with them. Now you could say this is the true soulmate, which is what Ishwiji is referring to, not the male and female concept. The male and female concept is a separate system. But this is a true soulmate, and yes, you need this soulmate to cross into Parbrahma.
Thank you. So when people talk about soulmates generally, what's that about then?
It is a feeling that they have. So for example, when you descended into creation, 1 trillion souls, let's say, at the same time came in. All of them are your soulmates, actually, in the higher sense. But let's say your particular story, your particular chapters, are associated with a group of maybe 100 or 200 individuals. And it revolves around these. And some of those individuals have a more closer association with you life after life than others. So you could say that the closest association to you is a soulmate. It is okay to say that. It's not the complete truth, but it's a version of explaining why some people are very closely tied with each other. Not that they're soulmates, but they are working together as part of the drama of their adventure in this creation. But in truth, every single person in this world, including all the animals, insects, grass and everything else, are your soulmates. Because you're all together in such kind before descending into creation to make the whole play work. Everything is necessary to make it work. It's not like you come on your own and somehow everything else is just there. All other beings are the same as you. They all come and they feel, well, everything's there just for them. How can that be? Unless all of them have come together and decided on the parts they're going to play and then play those parts. And the further thing is, because all of them are you in different forms, in reality the one becomes the many, then all of them are versions of you. So when you complain, I'm only a blade of grass, while this one is an emperor losing land, well, you are the emperor too. It's just that as a blade of grass, you are so identified with this blade of grass, if you allow this to happen, that you think I'm only a grass, poor me. But the Lord's point of view says, you are the Lord itself. What are you complaining about? But let's have fun with this individuated idea of limiting your awareness to this blade of grass. So now you only know what it's like to be a blade of grass in this lifetime. Let's see you have fun with that. And you do.
Well, you don't get the benefits of the other stuff as well, do you?
Well, the fact that you are actually experiencing on a higher level from the soul's point of view all other life forms at the same time, then you are getting the benefit. Because you, from a higher perspective, you are also experiencing the life of the emperor, the queen, the businessman, everything else. From this limited aspect, you are saying, this is all I am. It's an illusion. It's a delusion, actually. You're deluded, right? You're on drugs. You're high, right? Because you think that this is what you are. But that's the whole point of it. Luckily, it only lasts for a certain amount of time. I mean, what's the lifespan of a blade of grass or a human being or an insect, right? It will only last for a certain time before it ends and moves on to the next story. Totally forgotten, the previous one. And because of this births and deaths idea, you never stay too long in one form. So you're constantly moving through the spectrum of life forms until you become a human being. And then you still carry the same attitude as a human being, because you still think, look how lowly I am, I'm born to this poor village in the Sudan, right? Whereas people in America are living in a lap of luxury in LA, right? But actually you are them too. If only you looked a bit higher, when you divided yourself up, the one became the many, and you became all the parts. You're actually playing that part, but the difference is, to make it work well, each individuated soul has to believe it's a unit entity on its own. Otherwise, why would it even take part in creation? Why would there be any interactions? Yeah.
So, wouldn't that be the same with your master then as well?
Yes. The master came with you.
So he's playing a part as well.
Yes. The master, the one who plays the master, is your soulmate.
So,
right?
So when you meet your radiant form of your master, you're actually meeting yourself.
Yes. The initial stages of the spiritual enlightenment involve the soul transmitting its authority into the karmic creation. Now, the pull that you have to go into spirituality comes from your own soul. Where does the soul get it from? It is part and parcel of the soul's condition and that of the Supreme Lord. So when the one separated itself into the many, it became individuated. And as an individual, it created an identity separate from others. It's an illusion. The whole thing is a play. That's why the Master says it's a great play, even beyond mind and Maya. Forget the mental aspects of the play, the karmic aspects. Even beyond that, the individuated soul in Parbrahm, who sees itself still as an individual, is also under this illusion that it is separated. But then, the pull, as it rotates and turns back to Satgurus, as I explained, the pull of love, or the pull of this union with its origin, we call love, which is actually truth, but it's translated as love in human terms, because we don't have an emotion associated with truth. But to appeal to the emotional mind, the saints call this love. We have a pull of love for the Master or for the Lord. Actually, it's the pull of going back to our truth, the ocean of truth. And that pull drags us back. And as we're dragged back, we can see further and further. And we see, and we merge eventually with the collective consciousnesses of souls in the fourth realm. And then for the first time we realize that we're one of the many. But not yet complete. It's only when we go to such Khan that we fully realize that all these other parts are indeed our own self, and that we are the Supreme Lord. And there's only ever the Supreme Lord in creation. There's nothing else.
So when we go to, say, Haynes Park and go to Satsang and sing for Babaji, we're actually sitting in front of ourselves.
Yes. That's why the Masters say you look into a mirror.
So why don't the Masters just be straight up and say, I am you?
If this creation is to continue, then those misconceptions have to be there. If the full truth is told to everyone and has everyone's ear, who would continue in this creation?
So the
whole thing will fall flat.
So the Master is kind of lying.
Yes.
So
Babaji himself. Babaji has said that himself.
Myself. So what you're saying.
You're playing the part. You're lying to yourself. Call it that. Or say that you are having an experience, an alternative experience to truth, the whole truth.
So why not tell you that truth during initiation?
Why?
Why not?
Then that will spoil your journey back home. You tell the mind, who is predestined to act in a certain way and react in a certain way as part of the story, the absolute truth of it. What will happen?
But you're telling me now, so it's the same difference.
I know, I am. But how many people am I going to be here? Are going to hear? By the time this becomes universal truth, 40 years will pass.
But Ishwapuri says it in satsang.
He refers to it.
But he says the master is you.
Yes.
So
But he's also, how many followers has he got?
I don't get that.
How many people? It has to start somewhere. You'll think of it as a light bulb moment, a switch that you suddenly switch on and the entire world is illumined. It's not going to happen like that. If this creation is to continue, you have to have people at various stages of spiritual development. Not all can develop at the same time.
I understand that, but I'm talking about just your own master. Why doesn't the master tell you that I am you?
Because going back, because firstly we wouldn't comprehend that, we wouldn't accept it. So let's say Master told you right now, I am you. You'll look at him and say, no, you're not. You would deny it flatly. Because you'll cite all kinds of reasons of physical separations and different looks and everything to justify your point of view. You have to understand that everything is driven by this truth and the story. You are part of the story. In order for you to play this part well, you have to believe in certain things. For example, you are asking this question of yourself. I, yourself, are answering this question. But you see yourself sitting there and I'm sitting here. So you're playing this game of questioner and answerer. But in reality, that's not the case. But yet you, in this particular form at this time, are believing it to be so. So here we are.
Even at the radiant form of seeing the master, you're not
that's still part of the illusion. The radiant form of the master is radiant only because you are radiant too. You are radiant too at the radiant form of the master. They use the term radiant form not because it's special in some way, but because everything in the astral realm is radiant. Everything is self-illuminated. Right? And because it's self-illuminated, when you see the master there, he's illuminated. You are illuminated. So from the human perspective, where we need an external light to make things happen, in the astral realm there's no need for an external light. So we call it radiant, for example. So that's another misunderstanding, that something's different. Yet, the interesting thing is, and you can ask anyone who's seen the radiant form of their master within, they will tell you one really strange thing. And that is, in the astral realm, the master is your friend. He's like the best buddy. He doesn't act like a master. He doesn't have choirs of angels singing around him, or flower bearers throwing petals before him, or choirs of music playing. Nothing like that. He's just like you. And when you see the physical form of the master, here, he looks just like you, doesn't he? A man. Yeah? Wears clothes, eats, sleeps, walks about just like you. He's not flying everywhere. He's not waving his hand and miracles are happening. So when you go to the astral realm, the master is exactly the same as you. But there's a difference. The relationship is different. The relationship is one of close friendship. You recognize that this person who you call master is your most faithful and dearest friend, who never judges anything. Even if you're messing up here in creation, he laughs. He says, look at you down there. Let's have fun. This is what you've been doing. Isn't it fun? He makes no doubt. He's a fun pussycat. He might be stern here, looking at you with what you consider to be judgmental eyes, because he has to play the part of a human being on earth, being a leader of so many. But there, he's a leader of nothing. There, he is your dearest and closest friend and chum.
So on the inner planes, you don't feel he's a master?
Not in that sense. Not in the sense that you understand it. Yes, this friend happens to know the way out of that way. He happens to be wise friend, but he's a friend nonetheless. Yeah? And there is no question of him putting his authority on you, or judging you in any way, or commanding you in any way.
Because we're equal.
We're equal. So that's why the masters said this, that when a satsangi dies, they're not judged like Dharam Rai's court. The master comes to an agreement with the individual character. Okay, what do you want to do? But this is it. This is the law. We are living in the law. We have to follow the law. We can't upstage the law like Jesus said. I'm here to uphold the law, not break it. So this is the law that stands, which you and the master are both affected by. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to heaven first, hell first, or become a human being? You are given the choice. How could you be given a choice if the master is superior and administers justice upon you? Who would follow such a one who is judged? Because we all fail. If we were judged by the masters, there's no hope of anyone making it. Nobody could be perfect here. This is an imperfect world. But when you go and meet your master personally within, he is your friend. He welcomes you as a friend. But the books give this other impression. It's the fault of the books, which is why I agree with Babaji to burn all the books. They're misleading. The idea that somehow the master's standing there with his staff and his long beard and a halo around his head commanding you in some way or judging you. That's not how it happens at all. It's like meeting a friend and say, come on, let's have a look. And you have a laugh about it all. You have a laugh about the whole thing, what you're doing, what you're doing in life, how you're building this, how you're destroying that. Master, look at this. What do you think is going to happen there?
But you're meeting yourself.
Yeah. The reason why the master is so much your friend is because he's the higher form of yourself. He is the wise form of you. Yeah? And when you merge with your wise form of you, you cross into Par-Brahm. Then it's all discarded. The entire thing is discarded. The concept of the separated master and the concept of you, the disciple, is discarded. After all that effort. That is the real truth of it. But it's not something, I guess, a lot of knowers of the truth like to say. Because it might put a lot of people off. They might think, well, what's the point of the whole thing then? The whole thing is a game. It's not real, which is true. But nevertheless, you are driven and compelled to follow the game because it's written in your script and you have no control over what you do in this script. You cannot change the script. So you could protest, you can kick and scream, but you're still going to do it. So despite this conversation I'm having with you, you're going to go home and be exactly the same. Carry on doing your things. Saying, oh, that's an interesting idea, but I'm going to carry on anyway because I don't know any other way.
So that's the bit I don't understand about this path. Why not just be matter of fact? Like, you can't change anything.
You know, I have hopefully tried to answer that so that most people can understand this, right? But when you reach, I say to you, if you really want to know the answer to that in a more personal way, why not go inside and have a look? Do the practice, have a look and see for yourself. Because this world is evolving. There's a story to be written. That's like the villain saying, well, if I'm going to die in the third scene of this film, why not just die now? Why bother playing the part in the film? Would that make good entertainment?
I was listening to another teacher and he says there's nothing to do.
That's right, there is nothing to do in reality, but you're compelled to do it anyway because it's in the script. You try doing nothing. You try going home and say, that's it, I'm not going to go to work, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to sit there. See how far you get.
What you can say is just follow the script, forget everything else.
Can you do anything else? Can you do anything else? Can you do anything but follow the script? This entire debate is muted simply because it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's automated. So you're merely asking things that you have no control over. But your attitude is something interesting because there's this wavering of attitude, you see. If it would be hopeless for everybody if we couldn't shift the attitude, although that's not in our hands either. When the time comes and the soul starts turning away from the world and starts looking to go back to its source, its projection or power in the world weakens, and therefore the individual mind becomes weaker as a proud egotist. It starts becoming humble, it starts becoming fearful, it starts becoming questioning. It has all these things that we consider negative, which actually is positive.
If that is written to do.
Yes, when it is written, when a time is written for you, that will happen. So all you could do is say, that's interesting, let me check up on how well I'm doing in this journey. Has any of those things started for me? If yes, say, okay, I'm somewhere on this journey. Right? So it's an acknowledgement. information, right, that you could do. Now, let's say something I was to say today would change your behavior in some way, because it is written that you're going to be receptive and your karma and sanskars allow you to do so. Then you will. Not because I said so, but because I'm the inspiration behind it in the karmic realm. I've said something to you that's made you change.
The satsangs ultimately are just killing time, aren't they?
Yes, what else is there? Babaji himself said, I'm just an actor on the stage and I have to say something to you, so let's talk about this subject or that
so it's
subject.
just passing time until that.
Then, that's the entire life. Once you're initiated, your job is done. What is there to do? Once you're initiated by a perfect living master, you're going home, whether you go kicking and screaming or smoothly. Now, Hazur Maharaji, Charan Singh, he said, it's like being chained to a tractor. Either you're going to be dragged, because the tractor won't stop taking you back, or you can jump onto the tractor and go along with him and enjoy the ride. So the entire talk of explaining how one should behave for our best interest is to make the journey as smooth as possible. So if my talk or anybody's talk were to influence you to do something in your best interest and you benefit from that, then that talk has been well worth it. So we don't know what elements of this talk would change you. Even you don't. But suddenly you can start inherently just behaving a little bit differently, a bit better, and you might think, oh, I'm getting somewhere now. But you cannot pinpoint a particular source. Okay? Right. Yes, sorry. We'll carry on with the question now.
Okay, this is another question going back to the soul. When a soul vacates a body upon death, does that mean the same life or lives previously played are available for another soul to experience?
No, not at all. Each individual mindset which is attached to a particular soul forms the character of that person during their time in karmic creation. It's not that you suddenly leave, go somewhere wonderful and somebody else jumps in and plays that role. No, that role is specifically and uniquely assigned to you. And once that is discarded completely, it's never to be used again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a question about attitude. I think you've answered this already,
Okay.
but I'm going to pose the question. There's a bit of discussion first.
Okay.
Babaji often says that life puts us in situations, but how we react is our choice. Yet I find that my reactions sometimes feel beyond my control, almost automatic. I've also observed that some people naturally have a more positive and calm disposition, while others tend towards negativity. So the questions are, does this stem from our past impressions and conditioning? And if so, can we truly change our attitude? Is it through meditation alone, or are there other practices that help transform deep-rooted patterns of reaction?
Okay, I mean, I have answered this, but I'll try to add some more to the answer previously given. So when Babaji refers to the fact that we're put into certain situations, which is the karma, so we're put into the karma to create a reaction in us. So the karma itself, I mean, you would not do anything if you didn't have any driving force behind you. For example, if you didn't have to pay the mortgage, you wouldn't go to work. True. So you're given a mortgage, then you have to go to work to earn the money, right? And then you are given the hunger, so you have to go and buy food. So basically, everything is given to you and you react accordingly. That's how the karmic system is driven. So this is the fun game. And because you're reacting and you're the one being the participant, you think it's all down to you. You don't realize that where does this hunger come from? Where are these responsibilities come from? Where have these children even come from? Yeah, ultimately. Yeah. Everything is driving you to react. Now what Babaji is explaining is that how we react is important. And how we react is based upon our attitude. So, a noble human attitude would always act rightly because it is the right thing to do, right? But of course the majority of people are not in that state. They will react according to their story, because if they have, say, another 10 lifetimes to go, they have to fill those lifetimes with some activity. They have to do things that require them to come back and continue the story. So there's a consequence. So they have to act with a consequence in mind. Now, they don't know they're doing this because of this wonderful thing of choice making. This belief that you're making a choice. But on what basis are you making choices? It's totally rigged against you. Yeah? So for example, if I had free will, I would not be sitting here. I'd be sitting in a palace somewhere, let's say. But I'm sitting here. The choice is, what do I do when I'm here with what I have in front of me? And those choices are driven by preferences. So for example, let's say you invite me to your home and I really want mango juice. That's my will. But I go to your home and now you say, well, do you want a drink? I said, yeah. He said, well, I have tea or coffee. Oh, now I'm not being able to fulfill the will that I had, free will, because I don't have it. Now I have just choices to make, tea or coffee. How do I decide? Oh, I know what, I'll go by what I prefer. I prefer tea. I said, I have tea. And there's a consequence of drinking that tea. Now, the whole process driving this is not in my hands. But I'm being made to make a choice at the end of it all to look like it's something I'm doing. Because that's the way the mind works. Remember, the mind is ignorant. It has no knowledge of the workings of creation beyond itself. So it subscribes to this idea of making choices as if it's free to make those choices. And it isn't. And that's the fascinating thing. In order for the mind to continue in existence and believing itself to be real, it has to believe that the choices it makes are its own. But they're actually restricted. So in this question, when Babaji says, how we react is our choice, well, what does the choice mean? Because our choices are based upon our preferences and inherent traits that we brought with us. Yes, the individual character is making the choice, but are we responsible? No. It's a factor of the part that we're playing. That's why no matter what choice we make, in the eyes of the master, it's the right choice. They don't see. Even if you try to stab the master on the stage, he says, okay, that was written in your role to do so. Now I have bodyguards to stop you. That's written in the role too, that you will not be successful. But nevertheless, let's play this game. In fact, even the more extreme version of this happened at the time of Guru Arjan Dev, which is recorded in other literature by an observation, but not in mainstream Sikhism. When he was being tortured by the minister of the emperor at the time to convert to Islam or die, and this was driven by the fact that the minister wanted this Guru's son to marry his daughter, right? Because he was a high-ranking noble person in an area in Punjab. So he thought, well, my daughter, I'm a minister of the emperor, I need to marry my daughter to a high-ranking official, so he should. So they chose the Guru's son. He said, right, this is a great honor for you. And the Guru said, no, my son will not marry your daughter. And he was snubbed by that. And after all, they're the ruling clan, they're the Mughal rulers, right? You don't go and tell the king or the king's minister, I'm not going to do what you say. Because in those days, justice meant off with your head. But instead, because of this constant refusal to convert and the fact that he would act from the minister's point of view, acting for the emperor, he was proud. Guru Arjan Dev was proud in his stance. That's how he saw it. He was simply defending his stance of his beliefs and his principles. Yet he saw it in a different way. So the way it's written. So the close associates and followers of the Guru tried to reason with the Guru and also with the emperor and the minister to save the Guru from this torture, this humiliation, everything. And they trade, we're going to pay the bribe, the money. Guru Arjan says no. He said, I will not pay this money. It will convert. Maybe we could come to some arrangement about not publicly teaching the teachings of Sant Mat. He said, no, I'm not prepared to do that either. And on all the other things, everything kept failing. And they got so much in despair, his close followers around him. They appealed to the Guru. He said, why, with every turn we come across with some solution, you turn it down? And he simply said, why are you trying to stop me having fun? Why are you interfering with this? He said, I'm having fun with them, and you're interfering with the fun. So see how they see the point of view. These followers were seeing he's been tortured and harmed and ridiculed and humiliated, and the Guru thinks, I'm just having a bit of fun here. And that shocked them, because that wasn't the answer they were expecting. So he was a willing participant. He said, it is written for me, he said, in this decree of decrees, that I should undergo this.
But relating to this person, I'm guessing they are in situations, they react a certain way, don't particularly like it, they recognise that other people seem to be calm, like, why can't I be maybe like
They
that?
should do the best they can.
Okay.
If they do the best they can, the very best, with that good heart, and fail, don't worry.
Okay. Okay, I've got a couple of questions about life now. What are the signs that a baby or child was a satsangi in a previous life?
Well, the most obvious thing about that is the fact that they're born from a young age with a recognition of the masters. It's an interesting thing, because if you were to give a young child who's been on the path a picture of a master, or the picture of your relatives or grandparents or all them, they will recognize the master. They may even, fold hands in front of the master in recognition. Why? This child may be 2 or 3 years old. What does he know? He doesn't even know who it is. Yet he sees that one with reverence. He recognizes. That's the first sign. That this person as a child is pious. They're obviously very much, when you talk about the master, they perk up, even if they don't understand what you're saying. They don't actually understand the content. But when you're referring to this Lord, this God, this master, they perk up their attention. Whereas others do not. They carry on playing with their toys. So these are very early signs that this person has been on the path and been initiated before. And as they grow older, they're constantly seeking for answers. They're constantly searching. May go down the science route, may go down the philosophy route, may go down the religious route. But whichever route they take, they have this deep yearning to find answers to their questions about life, when their fellow mates are just talking about other things. They want to earn $1, find a girl, become a businessman. And this one is thinking very differently. They're questioning very deeply about life. Why should they be doing so? So naturally that this person will eventually meet the perfect living master day and get initiated. So definitely there are signs.
Thank you. Why is it hard to control my thoughts when life feels so hard?
Because everything is scripted. But if you really want to help control your thoughts, and you are ready, willing and able to do so, then you'll follow the teaching of what was said today about living a noble way of life. You'll embrace those things and you'll be able to do so. See, just listening to them, I could give many answers to this individual. None of them they will be able to do yet. When the time comes, this person will, when the pull comes from within, will naturally disengage from worldly phenomena and start being more in control of their activities in the world, simply because they lose interest in what's going on around them. So I could say what the books would say: do your spiritual practice with love and devotion. Yeah, I could say that. And that answer I'll give, just because it is an answer to give. However, you have to wait your time. But the time will come. So for example, the good news is the mere fact that this question has asked this question means that the time is coming near. Otherwise they wouldn't even be bothered to ask the question in the first place. So that's the good news. The other news is it will happen in time. But it will surely happen.
Thank you. Got a few questions about meditation now. How quickly do we start Simran once we sit for meditation?
There's not a prescribed formula or a speed thing. In fact, you should be doing Simran constantly throughout the day, not just in meditation. But the moment you're sitting comfortably in meditation and are able to focus a little bit, then you can start the Simran. There's no particular time you have to wait or not wait. Just let it be natural.
Thank you. How do we meditate with love and devotion when life gets in the way and it's hard to connect with that feeling?
Rather than trying to connect with love and devotion, why not connect with the one who initiated you? And the love and devotion will follow as a result. The one who's helping you and guiding you in this life, the one who's put you onto the path, why not appreciate them? Be grateful that you have at least that. Because so many others around you may be more successful than you, but they have none. They're going to have to go through the whole rigmarole of judgment and condemnations and all the other things where you've been initiated. You have nothing left to do. So, if you want to enjoy the ride, sure, appreciate the one who's helped you, and you can appreciate them through what we call love and devotion. But the way you can express that love and devotion is down to you. The masters have prescribed a fixed ritual method, which is understood in India, which means you sit in a certain lotus position, you focus upon the eye center, and you do your bhakti, you do your meditation. Okay, that is a way, but it's not the only way. There are many ways you can do this. But the most important thing is you build a personal connection with the master who's initiated you. If you can build that connection, then naturally the love and devotion comes, because you're grateful to that one. You recognize that that one has helped you, has put you onto the path, and something inside you recognizes that this is special. It doesn't understand what it is yet, but it just something inside you makes you feel that this is a good thing, and it's a blessing. Even if your rebellious mind tries to query, well, what has it done to you? Have you got any richer? Have you married off your daughter? Has your health improved? No. But still you say, something good has happened. Because it is driven from within you, not from the superficial ramblings of the mind. Right? And that pull is what you should build upon. That feeling. Get that feeling, develop it, build your relationship with your master, and the rest will happen automatically.
Thank you. Last question about meditation. On days when meditation feels dry and the mind just refuses to cooperate, with overpowering thoughts occurring, or there seems to be no motivation at all, what steps can I take to get out of that lethargic state?
Like with any job to be well done, preparation is key. You have to prepare the entire day to sit in meditation. It's not a question that you just go into your hustle and bustle of life, interact in all manner of ways, positive and negative, and then hope to sit quietly in meditation and withdraw your attention. That's not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. If it was that easy, everybody would be meditating, even the non-initiates. They'll all be sitting there and flying with the fairies. But it doesn't happen. Why? Because it requires a change in attitude. Again, we're going to go back to this attitude. If this spiritual practice is your objective in life, your most important objective in life, then your attitude should reflect that. Everything you do in this life should be geared towards that end game of meditation. Everything. Right? Then when it comes to sitting at the end of the day, meditation is easy. It's a natural byproduct of what you did in the day. Then there's no struggle with it at all. But if you're doing the exact opposite to the spiritual ideal throughout the whole day, and then you want to sit somehow in meditation, it's not going to be successful. So preparation is key. And how do we prepare? Constantly associate with the spiritual path that we are on. Constantly build that relationship with your master by constantly talking to the master. Even if you do not hear the replies, you can mentally talk or even physically talk. Oh, what should I do now? Oh, master, this thing. What should I do with this? As if this person is about you. Yeah? This is building the relationship. It's different from a worldly relationship, because the worldly relationship you have to have the object in front of you. This is a spiritual relationship. Therefore, this object is everywhere. It's just that you can't see it yet. Don't let that stop you. Yeah? If you have the faith and the belief that this master is omnipresent, then it's okay. Wherever I might go, wherever I might touch, the master's hand is there.
But what happens if your day-to-day life is so busy, and then by the time you get home, you're so tired from
it's your karma. I say, my classic answer: do the best you can and leave the rest. Mm-hmm. What else can you do? A pint cannot hold a gallon. If it holds a pint, it's doing the best it can. So do your best and feel that you go to bed knowing you've done your best, and let the Lord take care of the rest.
Okay. Question on love and devotion now. How do I increase my love and devotion towards my master?
Well, I mean, we've mentioned about the concepts of building that relationship. Firstly, if you're initiated by a perfect living master, appreciate that. You know, Baba Savan Singh Ji was once asked, the great master, he was asked this question: how can we best create this connection with you? You know, that the holy books tell us. He said, all the masters want is you to appreciate what they've given you. Was his answer. Okay, it's an answer. It's a good answer, because the point of trying to build that love and devotion has to start with appreciation. The gift that has been given to you. That among all the population of 8.5 billion people in this world, you and a few others have been singled out for salvation in this lifetime. The appreciation of what has been given to you, and the fact that you have a fallback at the end of the day, no matter what life deals you, what cards, you have the master to rely upon. And that master will come for you at the end of the time as well. And you will not have to go through all the difficulties of the karmic court. And at the same time, your intuitive feeling, because when a master initiates you, he places within you the intuitive feeling that this is so. Because one could say, well, how do I know all this is true? It's just hearsay then. Yeah, for the mind. But there's something inside you that says, no, this is real. And it's not something the mind can relate to. If it wasn't for that intuitive feeling within you, confirming all of this, even without seeing it firsthand, you would not be able to do anything. So you act in a spiritual manner because you're compelled to do so by this feeling within you. And the mind jumps on board, as it always does, to discuss about it all. So you have this little debate. Oh, is this the right way? Is that it doesn't matter what the mind's doing. But nevertheless, this appreciation or this recognition of the gift that is given you never leaves you. Even for somebody who walks away from the path, there's still this thing inside them that says, well, at the end of the day, even if I'm a bad satsangi, I'm still a satsangi. Right? And at the end of the day, Master's promise is that they will come and help you at the end of the day, no matter how bad I am. So, well, I'll be bad then, because that's my thing right now. Right? So it doesn't matter. But this funny thing is, when you question a satsangi, even those who protest and say, no, they still have this feeling within them, because that's what happens when you get initiated. It's a remarkable thing. And this allows you to appreciate it, even if not vocally, that you got none. It's almost like you have a safety net. And you ignore it most of the time. You think, it's there in the back, I'm not going to bother about it, because I've got so much busy in life, got so many things to do. Okay, do them. So what? It's just a game anyway, you're playing. And you want to be so involved and emotionally involved in the game, fill your boots, do it. When you get fed up, you'll drop it. Nobody has to tell you. Right? But in all of this, that feeling within you, that safety net, security, something special within you always remains. Isn't that a remarkable thing? And you can actually test this whenever you're really thoroughly going out there and doing all the naughty things of the world, whatever you may be doing, and you may be judging yourself, you may be judging others, you might be condemning the path, even condemning the master, saying he's not good enough because he hasn't given me this £1 million business I wanted, whatever it may be. Then you still somehow At the end of the day, when you sit down quietly, feel, I've got at least something gives you a reassurance.
Okay, I kind of see it a little bit different.
Go on.
Being initiated, twice.
Yes.
I got more guilt on me because I feel like I'm not doing.
Fine, be guilty then. If that's your way forward,
Do you know
why
what
not?
I mean?
But does the guilt turn you into doing something about it?
Somehow, maybe it's my karma because I just have more things to do in life, and they're not even my things. They're things that I've got a duty to do.
It is just karma, but
You know?
nevertheless, you're sitting here.
I know.
You're asking these questions. You're listening to this. Does that not count for anything?
Once every 3 months at the moment.
So, does it not count for anything? And day by day, deep down inside, there is a security feeling if you can slow down the busyness of the mind. Say that I've got numb. However, to appreciate it, you need to still yourself a little bit. But nevertheless, it drives you.
But I don't want to take that for granted because I have got numb. Do you know what I mean? That's how it feels like.
You can, if you want to justify it that way, you can. But nothing is taken for granted. You're acting, for example, you're following the vegan diet. You're not killing people. You're not doing harm to society. You're trying to follow the principles as best you can, even protestingly so, by saying, I'm so busy, I haven't got time to really dwell upon it the way the books say. Okay, that's your particular story. But it doesn't mean that your story will end badly. It's your perception, the mind's perception of wanting everything now, that gives this idea that somehow if we're not doing the perfect book story practice, we're failures. There are no failures on this path. It's impossible to fail. Reason is because it's not down to you. If it was down to you, oh yeah, there'd be plenty of failures. But it's not down to you. Once you're initiated, the pull and the turning of the soul is occurring at Parbrahm. Nothing to do with the mind, nothing to do with this character you're playing, the character asking me these questions, the character waving the protest banner. So what? Protest all you like, you're still going to go home. Right? The mind might protest, well, it should be this way, it should be done that way, okay. If you want to play that, you can do that. Make yourself feel bad, make yourself feel guilty, fine. It's your thing. Fill your boots. But the day comes when you get fed up with it all, say, you know what, I'm just going to rely on the Lord, let the Lord do his bidding. When the feeling comes in me to do something noble, will do something noble. Until that time comes, I'm going to be something else. Right? Then, this is the game. See, that's why listening to satsangs, for example, constantly surrounding yourself with the truth, stops you feeling bad about things and makes you more practical and productive. You have to take a practical point of view. Babaji always says, just be practical. Yeah? It's a straightforward answer, because what else can you do? Yes, you can harbour all these feelings. I would say any negative feeling that drives you to become more noble is good. If it makes you question everything, at least that's a sign that you are changing. Otherwise you wouldn't question it. Something's going to change in you, coming up. So never dismiss these things. Oh, I'm feeling really guilty now. That's a good sign. That's the Lord's grace.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? That means eventually I'm going to overcome my shortfalls. Right? So take everything positive. You see, from a Lord's point of view, he sees everything in a positive light. Because everything that happens to you once you're initiated is driving you towards this goal. Whether it's slowly or longly, or whether it's this way or that way, your mind can play the game of discussion about it all, debating about it all endlessly. But the debates of the mind are not going to make any difference. The fact is that once you're initiated, you're being pulled home. Now, if the mind jumps on board and plays along with it, it's going to have a smooth ride. If it doesn't, it decides to let itself be dragged and it's kicking and screaming all the way, then, okay, that's its thing. When it gets bored of being dragged, it will say, I've had enough of this being dragged business. Let me jump on board. The entire script is written when this is going to happen. You're following these timeline of events. So you should feel, I've got Nam at the end of the day, that's it. Now, obviously I want to have as smooth a ride as possible. If I can, in any aspect of my life, let me make a positive aspect. Let me do something noble and positive, because then that's going to make me feel good. And I want to feel good along the journey. Yeah, it's a natural characteristic of the mind. It wants to enjoy itself all the time. So why not? Yes.
When does this script end?
When? For each individual is predetermined.
Otherwise it doesn't end.
No, the script will end for everybody. Once you're initiated, for those who are initiated, the script will end within 4 lifetimes. Okay?
Everybody has to be initiated before it ends.
Yes, at the moment, but no in a wider sense. What does initiation actually mean? You can be initiated even if that person hasn't formally said yes. But there is some need. Because we live in a world of duality and we consider ourselves separate from truth, we do not accept that we're the Lord incarnate here. So we need somebody who represents the Lord to attach ourselves to, to follow. Because we won't follow our own self. We don't believe in ourselves that strongly enough. So we need an external force, right? Now, that external force we call, say, a master or a guru. And because they're telling us what we are, we like to hear that. So then we associate with them and we attach ourselves to them. And then in recognition that they have accepted us, they initiate you. But is that the only way? No. Let's say it so happens that your karma is so difficult in travelling aspects, and your health is so poor, that all you can do is listen to this one from a distance. And you can never meet them. But you have such a pull and connection to this enlightened one that it draws you to them. You think about them. You think about what they're saying to you. That pull becomes so strong that you long in your heart to be with them, to meet them, to associate with them. Then you are initiated. Because there's no way you would feel that strong pull for an individual like that if there wasn't a connection. It's just the formal sealing of the connection is done when you sit in a room.
It's like when we had that pull before we were initiated.
Yeah? That's pulling you towards initiation. Now initiation is done, sit back and enjoy. Kick your heels and enjoy yourself.
Wish.
What else is there to do?
You think there's a lot to do.
In your view, fine, do it. Whatever drives you as a character in this play, do it. Do whatever you want to do with full heart and faith. Whatever it is.
But he also says that don't be a burden, so you got to do something.
Don't be a burden. Yeah, these are all ideals. What about a poor man who has no legs? Say to him, don't be a burden, you have to be carried. What does that mean for him? Don't be an unnecessary burden would be a better sentence. Meaning, don't add. So if this man with no legs is talking to an aged mother who is herself with arthritis, and he expects her to run within 10 seconds to answer his bell when he rings the bell, then that's been a burden. But if he rings the bell for help, and the karma between them is that she's the helper or the caregiver, and he's the receiver, then she comes in her own time, he's grateful. He said, thank you, mother, for bringing my water. So the attitude is what counts. Our attitude to this whole thing. Yeah? So do your very best. But there's always room for improvement. And when you hear reminders like this to improve yourself, jump on board and do them. Follow them. Why not? If you can get closer to the ideal, you're going to be much happier. And after all, happiness is what we seek. Peace of mind and happiness is what everybody wants in this world. Everybody wants peace of mind and happiness. So the masters offer you that, and they give you a system. They say, well, if you do all these noble things and become a noble human being, you will have the peace and happiness, peace of mind and happiness that you seek. But it doesn't mean that's for everybody. Because if you're wholly attached to this world, then dukkha, suffering, has to be there to turn you away from it. If it wasn't for suffering, nobody would be on this path. So suffering itself is a blessing in disguise. Welcome it with open arms, but understand its power. That this suffering has the power to transform you. And that gift is from the Lord. So when suffering comes your way in such a way, embrace it and say, Lord, how should I best use this gift you've given me? This very valuable gift. How should I best use it? You see? So a positive outlook looks at things very differently. And that's what we want. So nothing is bad. You might put yourself down, you might complain bitterly. Okay, that's your thing. But once you start appreciating what you actually have, and the nature and role of the particular difficulty or suffering you're having, then you'll say to yourself, wow, this is a good thing, because it's turning me away from the world. And after all, I need that push, because the world is so alluring to me, so attractive to me. I want to be in it every minute. But now this suffering is pushing me away from this. Wow, this is something. So then you run after talks, like you come here to listen. You listen to talks, you go to see the masters, you read the books and whatever, read the quotes and the sayings. Why? Because suffering has pushed you to question things. And that is part of the play. It's a good part. So nothing is wasted. There's no time wasted on this path. Everything somehow or another is pulling you towards your truth. Whether it's done in a way that you can understand immediately or not is irrelevant. You're being pulled. The time will come when you become fully understanding of all this, and then you will say, wow, what an interesting journey. At every step I will say, what now? Anticipation. We all live in anticipation of what is next, because we don't know what the future has. Whereas the astral beings, they already know everything. What is to come? The entire life is written before them. They can see everything that's going to happen to them, but they still enjoy doing it, because having an actual experience of it is still good. Yeah, we have an additional handicap. We don't know what is to come in the next 5 seconds. Yeah, so what we do is we play around with the ideas. We think, we dwell on things, we play intellectual games with it, all debate things. We do all these things, but regardless, the script is there. And then when the script unfolds, I thought that would be the case. Oh no, I totally got it wrong. Yeah, you play this game. Either way, it's going to happen. But I say a positive attitude enjoys it all, even when they make mistakes. Look at that, how silly I am, made a mistake. Okay, next time I'll do better. So from the Lord's point of view, this is what he likes to see. Talk about progress, that the person is happily enjoying themselves on this path, even while making mistakes. You know, Hazur Charan Singh Ji Maharaj once said, he said, even if you're given the role of a villain, be the best villain you can be, do your job well, and come to me and say, look how well I performed this role. And Master said, good, you performed your job well, because Masters do not judge. We judge, because we live in a world of judgment and condemnation, where everything is seen as good and bad. The Master sees only a play. Like watching the movie, it's only a movie. Yeah, bad things or good things may happen in it, but we say it's just a movie. So this is our movie, we have to be participating in it. If we want to play the role of the victim or the villain, okay, you can. You don't have to. You can just go with the flow. Yeah? So don't be too harsh on yourself, but when something hits you in your heart that transforms you for the better, embrace it. And you don't know when that hit is going to come, or by whom. Something transforms you. Be grateful to the Lord that this has happened. And as you build up your little gratitude saving account, that turns into grace. Then grace comes upon you even without you asking. Why? Because you have sufficient merit. You've built up sufficient spiritual merit to warrant grace. And people often say, well, I don't know what I particularly did this day to have such grace bestowed upon me. What they don't realize is been accumulating over time. It's not one heroic act that did it. It's just over time. But all these little spiritual merits are translated to grace. It's only when you look at it from a higher point of view that you understand this merit system and grace system, how it works. And how you are building merit. Every day that you even think of the Master just once is added to your merit system. Imagine if you could think about it 1,000 times, how much merit you build up. Yeah? And then something stirs inside you. Because the best grace is your change of attitude, not the karmic change. The karma won't change. If you're destined to do this job, have this illness, have these children, meet these people, that's going to happen. Because you can't change the story, otherwise the whole world will collapse. But how you feel inside, and remember, it's all about peace of mind and happiness, right? That's what everybody's trying to do in their own way. All human beings are driven by this. That feeling changes inside you, and that is the magic that's happening right here. That feeling, not the physical events that you relate to, the whole world talks about. Don't get caught up in all of that. It's what happens inside here, within you, deep within you, that matters. Nothing external. You can be a good person, you can be a bad person, you can be anything you like. But that feeling, as it wells up inside you, drives you to act in a certain way, to think in a certain way. And that results in certain consequences beneficial to you. So, the mere fact you're sitting here is spiritual merit for you. And we don't know how much more you have already accumulated. So when you're in need for something, and you simply say casually to Master, please help me with this, and the help comes, then you wonder, where did that happen? A week ago I asked for the same help, it didn't happen. Now today's happened. Because you've built sufficient merit, and now it's been answered. Exactly as the script decreed. So why not let go? Once you're initiated, just be happy. Laugh and sing along the street, no matter what. Even if the whole world is falling apart, what does it matter? This world is not going to be here forever, neither are you. You're just passing through history. Nobody will remember your name in 100 years' time. Nobody will care what you achieved, what you didn't achieve. Nothing of you will remain. Why you bother so much with this place? Nobody's going to appreciate you here. Why not do something for yourself that is appreciated by the Lord? That's a better way to live. Okay? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to move on to enlightenment.
Right.
And we're going to stay on this subject for a bit because there's about 14 questions.
Okay, right, okay.
Okay, what are the key inner practices that actually lead to enlightenment?
Well, if you want to summarize it into a particular narrow practice, then we can say seeking the high truth in whatever form you can is the ultimate. If you become a genuine seeker or Sikhi, then such feelings within you that are welled up within you automatically lead you to take the right steps towards enlightenment. You will come across certain teachings, you will come across certain philosophies, you will come across certain methods that allow you to become enlightened. It's not that the enlightened is the same for everyone. Some people have to do a particular set of tasks and they become enlightened. Others don't have to do something completely different. So there's no single answer, but there is one point: seeking the highest truth of the self, of who you really are to start with. Because the only thing you know is who you are, in the sense of you exist. You don't know that the Master, the Lord, exists. You don't know about the Shabbat. You don't know about Satgurus. These are all abstract thoughts. But you do know one thing. You know that you exist. Why not start with that? Become enlightened about you. And then automatically that will drive you to the next part. So self-inquiry, who am I really? What is my point being here? What is the point of this existence? Where did I come from? Because I'm conscious. I'm a conscious life form. What is life? See, when you become a seeker answering all these questions, automatically that leads you to act in a certain way and to do certain things. And this leads to enlightenment. But if I was to pick 10 people from the world who become enlightened, they'll all be different. They'll all would have done different things to get there. But they all had one thing in common. They sought the truth. That's why Ishwarji, for example, used to always say, just be a seeker. Be a really good damn seeker. That's it. Seek with all your heart, all thy soul, all thy passion. Seek the truth no matter what. And it will come to you. You'll become so-called enlightened. Enlightenment, incidentally, is only of the mind. The soul doesn't become enlightened, the soul becomes aware. The soul is already enlightened, doesn't need to be enlightened. Yeah, all of these descriptions are for the mind.
Okay, next question. How can we tell if we are making real progress on the path?
Attitude. If you have a noble attitude and embracing all the things I've said to you, you are surely making good progress. It's not what you see or hear, or what you build or don't build. It's your attitude that matters. When you have that noble attitude, and that is expressed through tolerance, patience, kindness, forgiveness, compassion to everything around you, that this is the greatest mark of spiritual progress. So what if you see 100 angels singing to you in the realms? So what if you see 10 masters floating around? If your attitude has not been transformed into a noble human being, and you have not become a noble seeker of the highest truth, no matter what the cost, everything else pales into significance. Doesn't matter. You know? So that is the real progress. But this takes time, because the mind is the biggest obstacle. And the mind has been scripted to play a certain part in this creation. So the mind will come in the way of this at certain points. But nevertheless, there's something inside you, like I said, this pull that even the mind doesn't comprehend, that drives you to want to be better on the path, that wants you to make progress, even if you don't understand what that progress is. It drives you. So you need to allow that to grow. And remember, this is happening automatically, because as your soul is turning away from its attention into the karmic realms and gradually turning towards its source in Satgurus, it withdraws its power and its obsession with the world, and it drags the mind along with it too. The mind becomes, as we say, more purified and more holy in acting, which doesn't really matter because you're going to discard it anyway, but just for the sake of creation stuff, that's what's happening. And the attention is being withdrawn back to the source of the soul itself, so back to itself. And when that is complete, we say we're self-realized. That's what self-realization means, that instead of projecting its attention out to itself and shaping it around a mind figure, a character, it now withdraws its attention back to within itself and becomes self-aware. We call this self-enlightenment, which is the first stage of spiritual progress, the first step to completing the spiritual progress. Yeah. So everything we're doing now, really here in this physical world, is all about self-enlightenment. First, you cannot know the Lord unless you know the self, because you would not recognize the fact that the Lord is everywhere and everything. You have to understand your relationship with the creation, who you are and what you are in this creation, to make sense of what the Lord is. The Lord is not some man with a beard and a staff sitting there in some throne somewhere. That's not how it works. The Lord is supreme consciousness in everything, in the chair, in the paper, in the lights, in everything. So if somebody says to me, how can I see God? I said, well, I don't know of any way of not seeing God. I see God in everything. The Lord is in everything. What else is there but the Lord? How can there be anything else but the Lord? The Lord has made everything of itself. So the more difficulty is to find a place where there is no Lord. That is the real question, which is impossible. So that I cannot do. As long as you're in the creation, the Lord is there. Everywhere. But who are you in this game? Right? That's the interesting question. Why are you here? What's it all about? Who are you? So you can focus on that as much easier and more manageable to deal with than saying, show me the Lord in everything. Yeah?
Thank you. You've actually answered this next question. What are the biggest obstacles that stop a practitioner from becoming enlightened?
Yeah, it's the mind really. Yeah. The obstacle of the mind and the way the mind takes a view of the world. So the mind is constantly reminding through satsangs, constant association with the company of the noble and the wise. You know, it needs constant reminding. Whatever means works for you. keep on assaulting the mind with reminders until it gives in and says, okay, I give up. You win. I'll be a good and noble satsangi now.
You've touched on this as well. What are the core characteristics of enlightenment?
The core character, yeah, as I've explained already, yeah.
Can you explain how different traditions view enlightenment? And we're looking at Buddhism, Hinduism, Zen, and modern psychology and secularism.
Goodness, I feel like I have to write an essay here.
I know.
Okay, since the questioner has asked the question, I'm duty bound to answer it. I'll summarize this very briefly. So I think the first one was Buddhism.
Buddhism, yeah.
So in Buddhism, enlightenment is known as Buddhahood, yeah, or awakening, yeah, and it's a mindful awakening. Buddha refers to the mind, so it's a mindful awakening. And this Buddhahood or mindful awakening is the highest state of spiritual liberation in Buddhism. So it is and how is it shown? It is the complete cessation of suffering. So according to the Buddha, if we completely eliminate suffering from our life in any form, right, and realize the interconnectedness of all reality, that we are part and parcel of the whole show, and we're all part of it, and we're interplaying with this, which means that we are freed from the endless cycle of birth and death known as samsara, having attained this state, then this is the Buddhist view of enlightenment. And as a result, this true awakening makes you into a Buddha in this lifetime, and you become wise, and then you can tell others that how to go about the process. And at the same time, because you understand that everybody is within the control of karma, then you have boundless compassion. Very big. So Buddha was known for his compassion to everybody, even the evil ones, as they declared it in somebody called Unglimar, who used to be a demonic resident in the forest there, that the Buddha had his camp nearby, and he was told by a sage that the only way he can become enlightened, being a demon, is to collect 100 fingers, cut the fingers of 100 visitors into there, especially spiritual people, cut their finger. So he was called Unglimar, because of that. Ungli means finger, right? And this is a story at the time of Buddha, until he met the Buddha. And Buddha was just casually walking past him, and he growled and he threatened and he said everything, and Buddha did not flinch. And he said, hold on, who are you? You know who I am? He said, yes, I think they call you Unglimar. He said, do you know how fearsome my reputation is? He said, yes, I've heard it so. He said, but you do not flinch. He said, what is there for me to fear? You're not going to cut my finger today. And he said, what do you mean? He said, okay, let me tell you a story. So he began to explain to him about how he knows his story, or what's happened to him. He says, I just think a better way for you would be not to listen to that particular sage, because they're involved in the karmic system of coming back again and again. But why not try something else that will be more permanent and more pleasant? So he explained to him about the role of compassion and love and helping others through the forest. He said, you know this forest really well. He said, this is a dark forest and a dangerous forest. If you were to escort others through the forest safely, that would build even better benefit for you, I can tell you. He said, oh, nobody's ever told me that before. He said, well, I'm telling you. So, in gratitude for what I have now revealed to you, the secret to your success, you're not going to cut my finger. And he was so appreciative of this information. And I have really summarized the whole story. There's a much bigger dialogue going on, but I've summarized it for the sake of brevity. That he said, from now on, I'm your follower, and I'll do whatever you say. So he followed the Buddha, and he became one of Buddha's best initiates, best disciples. And in true to his word, he would escort people through the dangerous forest. Safely so. See? So even the villain became transformed. So that is the concept of compassion in Buddhism. Because the Buddha did not see himself separate from this being. He saw this being as another version of him. And it was his time now to help him. That the two would meet in his lifetime and he'd be helped. So he just did it. You see? So in Hinduism, spiritual enlightenment is termed moksha, which simply means liberation. Which means in Hinduism, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, or samsara. That is their ultimate goal of life, not to have to be reborn in a physical form. So, just like in Buddhism, their objective is to rise above mind and maya, which is the cause of karmic retribution. And by achieving this state called universal reality, in which they merge with Brahma, their creator, in Brahman, this is the ultimate, Brahma for them is the ultimate divine reality, or universal consciousness, universal mind, which they believe by merging with Brahma, becoming Brahma-like, they're enlightened. That's the highest form of life. So I'm talking about the highest form of enlightenment for each system. Now Zen, I think you mentioned.
Yeah,
Zen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Zen is a form of Buddhism, in which it's mainly practiced in Japan, in which their enlightenment is called Satori or Kensho. So that's the Zen word for enlightenment, and that's divine. That's defined as knowing your true Buddha nature. So it's similar to Buddhism, knowing the true mindful or Buddha nature. Okay, once you understand the true nature of who you are ultimately, then you have achieved an otherworldly state. Now they don't have a place like nirvana or some place beyond the world. From Zen's point of view, it is a simple awakening of the truth of who you are in the present moment. So Zen Buddhists believe that they are part and parcel of this world and that there's no other worldliness. But the state of awareness whilst they're in this world means that if they become understanding of their role in this world, then their natural role, and that oneness with creation, so they become one with everything they see around them. For them, that's that oneness, and so they become free from the illusions of duality. Then they are considered to be enlightened. But interestingly, in Zen Buddhism, they believe that you're already born enlightened, and that all you need a Zen master for is to tell you so, how to find that enlightenment within you. But as human beings, being the top of creation, you're already enlightened. So that's the Zen view.
And there was modern psychology in secularism?
Right, modern psychologists generally see enlightenment not as a mystical event, but as a deeply grounded state of psychological maturation. So they say that the mind has matured to such a point that it now acts in a natural form, true to itself. In other words, it doesn't try to be something it's not. It doesn't try to create a false persona of itself. It just is what it is. So, and the ultimate state of that is that because it is not trying to impress anyone in creation, not even itself, it has subdued the ego, it has conquered the ego. So now this person who is reached psychological maturation just acts as they are. Whatever their role is given, they just put up with it. And if it means they're going to get shot at dawn, so be it. They don't care. If it means they're going to be praised and hailed as an emperor or king, okay, they just go along with it. But they don't have the ego associated with it, so just go with the flow. And that altered state of consciousness, as they see it, so psychology sees things as altered states of consciousness, that is considered to be the highest altered state that a person, a human being, can achieve. And that, in their case, is what enlightenment refers to.
Thank you. Next question. If the ego is an illusion, who is it that actually becomes enlightened?
The mind becomes enlightened. The soul never needs to be enlightened. The soul is already enlightened. It's the character you're playing in this game that comes from an ignoramus to an enlightened one. Yeah? It's a good story. If we made a movie out of it, it would be a great movie. Yeah? We're living in our own movie, and we are the hero of our own story. It all revolves around each one of us. Each one of us is the center of our world. Each one of us believes that the world revolves around us. Because for us it does, as an individual. It's only when you leave this limitation and experience greater awareness that you start understanding that everybody else is doing the same thing as you. Yeah? And when you go still higher, everybody is you. So, it's the mind who becomes enlightened, simply because the mind by its very nature has been removed from its truth. The soul actually already knows the truth. It's never removed. The soul never has to. Remember, the mind has been created as a tool of the soul. So therefore it has no reality in its basis. There's no reality to it at all. It's a phantom that's created by the soul to have an experience in a phantom world, which we call the karmic realms. So if you give realization or enlightenment to a phantom, it's still a phantom. It's just an enlightened phantom. Yeah? But then because it is a phantom, you discard it. Like if you have a beautiful coat and you decide after being grubby and dirty for so long, you're going to put it in the washing machine and clean it. And you put it on, still a coat. At the end of the day, you just discard it, whether it's clean or dirty. Yeah? So the mind is just like that. But we place so much emphasis on this mind game because we believe it's our reality at this point. So the masters have these long stories and parables and metaphors explaining what the mind should and shouldn't do. But ultimately, the real change occurs from deep within us. It doesn't matter what anybody says externally. That pull, that drive has to come within us. Now, if somebody says something that resonates with a particular state of pulling that we have, we say, oh yes, I agree with that. And I'm going to do it right away tomorrow. But the vast majority of people who sit before a master or knower don't change. They may take one sentence home and say, oh, that sounds good, I'll try that. And that for them is enough. Others so recognize who's sitting before them and know of the truth sits. Wow, I'm going to delight in every word. I'm going to follow every word. You see, that's very rare that somebody does that. Because after all, they just see a human being in front of them, just like them. They say, how can this human being know more than me? They live just like me. What is this awareness thing they're talking about? I don't have it, so I can't understand it. So, okay, I know, if I understand this a little more, I'm becoming enlightened. Okay, so that could be what enlightenment is. That I'm just simply becoming more aware of who and what I am and my limitations as a mind.
Thank you. Right, next question. If someone is enlightened, do they still experience human emotions like anger, grief, or sadness? In other words, how does an awakened person handle a bad day?
A bad day. Firstly, they don't see any day as a bad day. And they certainly don't experience anger or grief or sadness in that sense. In fact, if anything, they have to fake those things when they're in the world in order to be able to relate to those who do subscribe to those feelings. So one who's fully enlightened sees everything as a great show. And they enjoy watching the wonder and marvel of the show being played in front of them. What else is there to say about it? There's no reality to any of it. So how can they then now suddenly convincingly feel anger or grief or sadness for something that's not real? It's a great stretch for an enlightened person to try and do that. But because they live in a world where unenlightened ones, let's say, follow this method of relating to the world, they have all these emotional issues, so they have to go along with them and fake it. The best one I've ever met to do that was Ishwarji. Because I remember at one of the meetings having a conversation with him. And I said, Ishwarji, you know, people tell you all their stories and their sob stories and this and that, and you react very well, really appropriately to their concerns. But you and I know there's no reality to anything that's going on. But you don't try to give even spiritual teaching. You just say, there, don't worry, we'll see what we can do. I'll ask Great Master to help you, or something like that. Yeah, I understand, it must be difficult for you. I said, you play the part so well. I said, do you think I can do that? He said, yes. When the need comes, you'll have to do it. Because the consequences will be not good. If you don't play your part in the world, then nobody will relate to you. And you'll even encounter difficulties. He said, so masters are expert actors. He said, we know how to act a part well. And if there was an Oscar performance for our part to play, we would be winning all the Oscars. He would say, he said, be a good actor. He said, that's the art.
Okay. Question for you though, regarding what you just spoke about. You only have moments of, like you can laugh at the day if something happens, but then you do resort back to getting involved in the day. And then you'll have another moment where you think, yeah, this is a play, it's an illusion, I get it, yada yada. But then you're still getting engrossed. What's that about?
Well, you've answered your own question. The mere fact that you have alternative viewpoints of the same events of the day is determined by your feelings on those days. And where do those feelings come from? What's in your script, the way you're going to play the game. Now, if you say, I'm truly fed up with all of this, I want consistency, then do something if you can. Follow the spiritual practice, do your meditation, constantly listen to the high truth, fill your entire day with truth stuff, with stuff that makes you appreciate and understand the truth. And you want to become part and parcel of that truth. You want to be a follower of that truth. So then there's methodologies given. Try it and see if you can. Do your best. What else can you do? It's not like you go and press this red button here on the wall in the hallway and suddenly you're going to be transformed. It doesn't work like that. This is not every day is a sunny day, not every day is a rainy day. Some days you're going to be feeling good, some days you're not going to be feeling good. But you still remain. You still exist, undisturbed by any of it. In reality, your higher self. That's why I say if you get to know your higher self, who you really are, then all these things are meaningless. All these external activities doesn't mean anything. You just play the best you can. So okay, I don't know what to do in this situation. Appeal to the mind. Mind, what are you going to do? Mind wants to do this. Okay, do it. Let's see what happens.
Because I do have moments like that, but then, like I said...
Yeah, but it's not every day like that, is it?
Oh, no.
Some days you feel good for no reason. You wake up and you just feel happy, and you think, why am I feeling happy? You're even suspicious of that.
Stop.
Yeah? I shouldn't be happy. I've got all these problems. I said, I don't know. I just feel happy today. Other days you wake up feeling miserable. Everything's going well. Why am I feeling miserable? Some fear has come in me. It's the nature of your evolution that day by day, right? As you're going through the timeline of events. But if you want consistency, then the masters have laid down the spiritual path. So do all these practices, think in this way, surround yourself constantly with positivity, and you'll have a positive day. Even if all is not going well, you say, oh, it is what it is. Or you'll use the famous mantra that Ishwar used to coin, so what? Yeah, he used to say, so what? So you just say, okay, so what? It is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and get on with it.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Is enlightenment a sudden, permanent, all or nothing shift, or is it a gradual, continuous process of deepening?
I would say the latter is true. It is a gradual process. Because if it was to happen all at once, then what's the fun in it? the fun part of the story, which is, I'll just elaborate on this point, is your journey back home, not coming here. Okay, you've created a phantom adventure playground for you to play in. You've created a character in which you associate with. That has its fun and its merits. But the actual real wonder is discovering your real self on the way back home. That you are in fact the Lord of all of this. All that you ascribe to somebody else being a doer, they've done this, they're in control, I'm going to worship them, and you are the one sitting on the throne. Wow, that is a miracle. But if that was to happen suddenly, all at once, the whole thing would have been lost. The magic of the journey is you slowly unfolding this discovery as you go back, bit by bit, bit by bit. That is the magical adventure. If you speak to anyone who is on this journey back home, and you ask them, which was the greatest fun, coming into the creation or leaving the creation? They'll say, by far, leaving the creation. Because when you get back to your source, you're overwhelmed with joy. Because you suddenly realize, all along, you were the doer, you were the Lord itself. And you falsely assumed that everything else was happening separately from you. Wow, to discover that I'm the all-powerful one, all glorious. I used to worship this one and that one in reverence, in lifetime after lifetime, and it's all me. Wow, I had a good time. See, this is beyond mind. The mind, being a phantom creation tool of the soul, cannot comprehend these things.
Yeah, because you telling me then who I am doesn't really mean anything right now.
That's right, because the mind doesn't comprehend it. The mind relates through the senses to the body in this world. So the mind says, okay, this is the body, these are the senses accompanying with, the likes and dislikes, and this is the mind state. Fine. What else can you do? But this is where the path comes in, because the path redirects the mind's attention towards finding out its true identity, where it actually came from. So that appeals to the mind, because it's a curious thing. It likes to know stuff. It likes learning. That's the nature of the mind. That's why we have books and knowledge. We love to know stuff, right? Whereas if you take your average cat or dog, it doesn't care about anything. It doesn't want to know how the universe got here or why it's alive or anything. It doesn't care. It hasn't got the capacity to think. It reacts only on instinct. The instinct is predetermined. Day by day, according to what it sees, it reacts. But we don't. We actually start thinking about things. Yeah? So that makes us wholly different.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question. What does an enlightened relationship look like? How do two people connect when they no longer have a rigid, ego-driven need for validation?
Goodness, that sounds like a very heavy-going psychological question. Well, an enlightened relationship, I would say, is one of frankness.
Okay.
There's no need to hide anything. There's no need to pretend. There's no need to make an effort. Yeah. So it's effortless frankness.
Okay.
I would say, and they have an indifferent attitude to the connection. They just go with it because it is what it is. There's no particular need to establish anything, to attain anything, to do anything. In fact, one could even say there's no relationship at all because there's total indifference. But if karmically they're thrown together and they have to be looking like they're doing something, then they play the game well. Usually in front of people they have to be an actor or an actress. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, next question. In the book titled The Key to Immediate Enlightenment, which is book 1 by Supreme Master Ching Hai, it states that any method of practicing for enlightenment is the Kuan Yin method. To practice the Kuan Yin method, you should every day spend at least 2.5 hours in Kuan Yin meditation. I have heard this is the fastest way to spiritual enlightenment. Is this correct?
Okay, let's first explain what the Kuan Yin method actually is. The Kuan Yin method is exactly the same as Srit Shabd Yoga in the Sant Mat. It's just that from the Eastern point of view, more like the Chinese peoples, Kuan Yin Bodhisattva was the female entity of enlightenment, the female form of enlightenment. So, Supreme Master, being a female and wanting to represent femalehood in the enlightenment game among all male masters, chose the Kuan Yin Bodhisattva as the instrument of enlightenment, gave it that name. The name doesn't matter, but it's just a name. But the practice is with the same 5 names given in Satgurus. Okay? And the idea of merging back with your master and then the master merging back with the Lord is exactly the same. So when she talks about that the enlightenment is the Kuan Yin method, it is because it is the same as in Sammat, but the name is different. You see, don't worry too much about the names. But it's interesting, a derivative of the name. The Kuan Yin is the female entity of the male sub-evolution. Right? We associate mostly masters being male, and this is the female equivalent. It is the fastest way, because Surit Shabd Yoga, connecting yourself to the Shabd within, which comes from you, that self-realization. Attaining self-realization before God realization is the fastest way to enlightenment. So it's just a terminology that's different, but the methodology is the same.
Okay, thank you. Why do we want to get to enlightenment fast, especially if we are encouraged to just go with the flow?
Well, I would ask that question too. Why does everybody want to do something fast? But there's a whole pleasure in that unfolding slowly. That's like me watching a movie that's 2 hours and say, I want it all done in 5 minutes. You lose the pleasure of it. Yeah, you get the story, but you lose the pleasure of it if you wind it really fast so it finishes in 5 minutes. Why not enjoy and savour the moments? So I would say, yes, enjoy your own enlightenment experience moment by moment as it arises, and savour those moments.
Do we have to meditate with love and devotion to attain enlightenment, or can we get there faster by another means?
There are other means. There are better means. You have to understand that the concept of meditation or prescribed ritualistic sitting in a certain position and performing certain functions is there in Kali Yuga, in the age of the greatest depravity of humankind, to distract them from the world. It's a method of withdrawing our attention away from the worldly phenomena and placing it within ourselves until we become awakened. That's the principle behind doing the meditation. There's no problem with that at all. But to say that this is the only way is not true. The fastest way, but it's very rare, so I'm going to say it anyway, but not, is for that realization to come within us through the grace of the Lord. Our time has come, the pull is generated within us, such a strong pull of love and devotion for the Master who is initiated that who needs to meditate on that basis? The love is there 24/7. It's not 2.5 hours a day that you become a lover and the rest of the time you forget your beloved. I wouldn't call that as love, actually. The love which is 24/7, the pull is there 24/7, that happens naturally within one. That is true meditation. That is true love. And that's what would lead to what you would call enlightenment. And that does not require formal sitting. But because it is so rare for that to happen within one, so the saints have prescribed a method or a path to enlightenment. But it's not always been the case. In different eras and different yugas, the path was very different. So, for example, in Satyuga, which is called the Golden Age, everybody was born with a spiritual bent of mind. There's no question of trying to achieve worldly phenomena. That's why they never built anything. They never built great industries or great houses. They had a perfect control of nature. They controlled the forces of nature. They could lift really heavy objects just with their mind. They had that much control over nature. And their sole objective of existence was enlightenment. But their version of enlightenment was Brahman. So they had to master control of the mind. So their focus was on practices that controls the way the mind operates, and empowering something called riddhi siddhis, which are special powers that the mind has to control the force of nature and the individual. So for example, they didn't need cars, they could just fly. If they want to go from A to B, they just launched themselves and flew. What do you need a car for? They hardly ate. They ate maybe once every 6 months, if that. They're mostly breatharian. No wonder they lived till 900 years, for 900 years, yeah? And it didn't need technologies, because they could use the force of nature. The force of nature was at their command. So what do you need technology for? They didn't have to work. They hardly ate. So they didn't have to work very hard to feed themselves. Water was abundantly already there. They needed to build structures to contain water. Yeah, they lived very simple lives, but their life was very in tune with their environment. So they never built much, yet they were enlightened. They were enlightened to the point they became enlightened because they mastered the senses, they mastered control over their mind, and that was their sole objective at that time, to just do that. So they didn't have to just meditate in the way we do now, because their whole life was driven towards this enlightenment. It wasn't a question of that they have to sit for 2.5 hours, nothing like that. They had a philosophy which they followed, and it's simply, imagine like a rule book that says to you, right, when you get up, this is what you do. So they had 220 rules per day that they had to follow. So they followed all of these, and they went to sleep at night, good day. None of these rules involved building skyscrapers, having loads of families or whatever. Education, nothing like that. These were things which were ancillary to the community. So for example, somebody had to go and collect the firewood. Yeah, or somebody had to go and make the food. So being community based, they would assign a role. But apart from that, there was no major need to build or establish anything. That's why we have no monuments from that time, despite the fact they were so involved, so advanced, so enlightened, as we say, yet nothing of their structures remain. Because they simply lived like other animals of the land. You tell me what other animals build anything? So they lived like the others on the earth. And because they had control over the force of nature, they didn't. So for them, the practice towards enlightenment was so different to what we do today. And then you have other types of creation, other forms of physical existence that have completely different laws governing nature. And again, their methodologies are so different. If you go into the astral realm, you'll see 1 trillion Earths, all with human beings, all with slightly different variations on the theme of enlightenment. So this is definitely not the only one. But for now, since we're here on Earth at this point in time, the Masters have given us a means, albeit artificial at first, to become enlightened. But ultimately, enlightenment comes by the pull from within. When the pull comes from within, you can't stop thinking about your Master and loving every word they say, every picture of them. You can't stop it. Nobody has to tell you to be a lover. You automatically know. So what do you need to tell me? I already know. I'm in love. I don't need any book to tell me. But for those who are not lovers, to get the gist of what loving means, this love and devotion, they read a book. You must sit in this way, you must think this way, you must chant this, you must do that, and then you become a lover. Okay. I guess they say fake it until you make it is the rule of the game. And that's what we're all doing, faking it. But when that natural pull comes within, there's no need to fake anything. Yes?
Did you say nothing from Satyuga exists today on Earth?
Not really, nothing that we can dig up. Yeah? The only thing we can look at is the climate. So we dig into the Antarctic core you'll get a climate of what the oxygen levels were higher in that time as well. Yeah, so they were bigger and taller and stronger because the oxygen levels are much higher at that era. There was much more abundant food. We know it was warmer as well. There was a break in the ice. There was, you could say, global warming, and so they're much warmer. So they could just sleep outside. They didn't really need much shelter even. Most of them just sat underneath a tree. They made their home underneath the tree. Everything was conducted by the tree. There was a little small wooden fences built around just to keep the animals away. Yeah, they were all vegetarian. There's no need to hunt. So there's no wars or spears or anything. So there's nothing of what we relate to in the modern era as as an existence, as a civilization. They had individual roles. They didn't have civilizations. There was no great empires built or no great peoples built. All distinctions between individuals were discarded. People were individual and they were only valued on their knowledge, gyan. Gyan was everything. So in those days, the person who possessed true gyan, he was the teacher and the leader of the community. And he would teach the others how to become a gyani. Yeah. So the whole emphasis on what they consider to be enlightenment at that time is very different to our concept now. It's so alien to us. We don't have all the powers they have. They would awaken the chakras so they could do amazing things. They had amazing powers and abilities that we can only dream of, which you watch in the movies, when you're watching the Marvel movies or the superhero movies, right? We imagine these people, they could do it. They had this control, they could do all those things. Imagine if you have all of that. What's there need to build anything? To construct anything? What for? It's just time wasting, hard work for nothing. They didn't even have temples because they were the temple. So all the concepts we have of now in the modern age of having buildings and even temples that we see, great monuments, is all based on the fact that we don't have what they have. So we need to surround ourselves with buildings and technologies and things like that, and work and activities. We've created a whole system revolving around earning $1 so you can buy food, so you can fill your belly and you can go to sleep at night. And then you start a whole cycle again, what they call the rat race. Yeah, they didn't have the rat race. Because the moment one was born, the Pandit there, the wise one in the village, would straight away read his forehead, the forehead of the individual. And from the forehead, they could read exactly what their story is going to be. This one will be a great this, a great that. They did write. They could write, and they wrote things. They wrote poetry, they sang, they played musical instruments, but none of that will survive 26,000 years later. Yeah. So what is there to preserve? What record is there?
It's fascinating.
Yeah. It will come again. But you don't really want to be around for that.
No.
Because as you can see, it's not as great as it sounds. You'll soon get bored of all these superpowers. Because having absolute peace of mind is what they lacked. They were striving and struggling just like you are. They didn't have the peace of mind that is attainable through Santmat. And they had no Santmat masters. They were all Brahman masters. Masters of Brahman. So they attained Brahmahood or Buddhahood. But there's no escaping mind and Maya.
Is that why I think one Marlak Jalan Singh did say that don't involve yourself in Riddhi Siddhis.
That's right. Because if you start doing that, you're going to have to come back into Satyug for that. Because that means you're trying to become powerful. You're trying to establish that you are powerful and you want to control the world. And to be in control of the world, you have to wait for the next Satyug to come. So you're trapped.
You say there was no masters at that time, but
no.
In Anurag Sagar it says Kabir was there.
Yes, Kabir was there. But what we mean by that is that there was no kind of setup in which masters universally taught. I mean, Kabir's present What he means is the Shabad was present, okay? He as Kabir wasn't present. We have to understand what is he meaning by this. It wasn't that he looked the way he does now was present there, but his Shabad, his representation was there in that form, and he mentions in all the yugas. In Anurag Saga, he talks about his presence in all of the yugas, to indicate the fact that there's always one or two deserving souls there, who even at that time would come to Maya. But he came just for those few, handful. There wasn't this, like Babaji has 5.5 million devotees, through the internet and everything. No, none of that. It didn't exist. So yes, when I say there was no masters, practically none is the correct thing. There was no real master system. There was the Guru, definitely. The Guru system existed. Avatars existed. So it was all about this mindfulness, attaining Buddhahood and moksha, Brahman. There wasn't really any debate about Par-Brahman and beyond. No knowledge of such kind and things like that. So it's a very different environment, totally alien to you if you were to just appear there. Firstly, you'd feel strange because you can't just fly, you have to walk everywhere. They did walk as well, but the fact that they had to reach these cities so they could fly meant that they could go from A to B quite quickly, if they had to. But actually, most of the time they just sat. Once they had their little tree and their little community around them, they just sat in the same place. Where are they going to go? Their whole life was geared towards their enlightenment. Nothing else mattered. The moment they became human beings, their sole objective, taught to everybody, there's only one lesson, one class, enlightenment. There's no chemistry, physics, biology, or maths, or, arts. Nothing like that.
But they were still trapped.
Yeah, very much so. They were still struggling. One thing that you can say about them, they were struggling just like you. But they were more comfortable in their struggling. That's why they could long it out for 900 years as a lifespan. Because their struggles was much less severe. So yeah, but it's not something I would say for any satsangi to want to experience. What you have now is far better. Honestly, just have to take my word for it. But when you go inside, and you have a look, you can see all this. You can see the workings of the yugas and everything, how it operates. You can look at other worlds and see how they operate. And then you might be more appreciative of what you have here. It's just that you don't understand the role involved in all the things that are happening to you. You have a world viewpoint. And the world viewpoint is so ignorant. That's like me asking a 2-year-old about a mathematical equation. The whole world is ignorant. So much ignorant. What do they know of anything? And you consider them to be the authority of the world? They have no idea how the world came into being. They're guessing at it. Once they were talking about the Big Bang Theory, now they're saying that's not the way it happened. They can't even make up their mind about how the universe came into being, let alone others.
Ishwapuri says that when they go back to the so-called original Big Bang, they'll see another universe.
Yeah. Because this is a multitude. There's trillions of universes like bubbles, all connected to each other. There's millions of them. This is just one of them. But science, they are postulating this. They are actually looking at the multiverse theory, right? But they haven't really nailed it yet. They're just not advanced enough yet to really understand this. Once they understand quantum mechanics and how matter behaves in an absurd way, then, because quantum mechanics is absurd physics, it's not normal physics, and because it has this absurd way of behaving, absurd or possibilities are there. Things that you cannot imagine are possible, can exist. In fact, in certain parts of this our own universe, there are alien beings, advanced alien beings, who exactly play around with quantum mechanics. So, for example, they can walk through solid walls. Walls are not a barrier to them. They don't really need to eat. Hardly. So when we talk about really advanced life form, they can even play around with time. They can speed up or slow down personal time. Imagine, they can time travel. They can cross trillions of light years in moments if they want. But they're preoccupied with other things. We think that if we're so advanced, we're going to go in and explore, But these aliens are not that interested in exploring the rest of the universe. They understand the concepts, so they're more concerned about their own personal problems and achievements, because they all have problems. Right? So, but yeah. So again, that's just this universe. Imagine you have so many different variations on the universal theme. How many different types of creation can there be? There's trillions of them, countless of them. In fact, a great master once said, when asked how big is the astral realm in comparison to this universe, which is considered infinite in science. It has no beginning and no end that they have been able to find. But great master rightly said that this entire universe is but a speck of dust in the Pacific Ocean in size in comparison to the whole of Anda, or the astral realm. There are countless trillions and trillions upon trillions, infinite numbers of physical universes present there. And then the astral realm itself is divided into 150 layers of different types of realities. It is mind-boggling. We cannot even fathom it with the mind. What's there? When we see it, then we see all the wonders. We can understand a little bit. But from their physical limitation, no way. But when we enter the radiant form in the astral realm and we see the wonder of the creation, we go, wow. Every possibility exists there. And that's just the astral realm. When you go to the causal realm, it's even more fantastic. The causal realm is so immense in comparison that the entire astral realm, with all these 150 layers that I've explained to you, again, is a drop in the ocean in comparison to the size of the causal realm. The causal realm is the creative realm that creates every possibility of existence. And it has millions and trillions of astral realms, each with themes that are unbelievable to you. That is the extent of creation. And when you see all of this, it's a wonder. But the mind reaching the causal realm has such an ability to comprehend such complexities that it's just like you sitting here and appreciating all the different landscapes in this world. You don't think anything of it. But if you take you with your limited mindset here, put you into the causal realm, you'll be dumbfounded. You'll be crying, please take me out of here, I'm confused. I don't understand what I'm seeing. That's the truth. If Master was to pull you straight, without adequate preparation to the causal realm, you will be very distressed. It won't be the pleasure you think about. It should be. You'll be extremely distressed, simply because you could not cope with everything that's there. Because there, every thought is a creative power. It actually makes things happen. Imagine now when you think things, it doesn't mean it happens. There, every innocent thought, you could say, is creating something, building something. You're the ultimate God. And every possible creation that could be considered possible exists. So where are you going to place your attention? Which one? It's so confusing. It's like if you had 1 trillion homes to go to from here. Which one do you go to? Pick one. How do you even decide? But the prepared mind, when it reaches the causal realm in the appropriate way, can distinguish what to do there. It understands its role there. But if I take you from here and put you there, you'll be totally dumbfounded. That's why there is a process of enlightenment which happens gradually. And as this unfolds before you, it becomes ever more wow, wow, wow. And that's the best and safest way to do it. Yeah? And then when you leave the entire phantom creation of the karmic realms and enter Parbrahm, and you see yourself as the soul, there is even more wow. Because then you realize that all this game that you were playing was nothing. It was meaningless. It was shadows on the wall. It was phantom. All of this time and effort and millions of years you spent in creation in the mind form was for nothing. You just discarded it like an old rag, just like that, and never looked back. You never glanced back even for a second. And in the time frame of the soul, the entire 3 million years that you spend here as a being in creation in all its life forms is a blink of an eye for the soul. Where is the suffering? There's no suffering. So from the soul's point of view, it blinked its eye and the entire show was placed before it. We have no concept of these things. It's only when we appropriately go there that we realize the true wonder of creation. That's why the saints remain largely silent on this. What is it they're going to say? I'm attempting to explain it. And I don't think I'm doing a particularly good job, but I'm giving enough gist of what's there. I mean, imagine a place in Parbrahma where there's no such thing as time and space. It doesn't exist. Everything is just one long moment. It's just a moment. Yeah? But that moment is pretty quick at that stage. Yet here it's dragged on because we have the concept of time here where things are spaced out, the timeline of events. Everything's created out with space in between. So it takes forever, as we feel, to do anything. There, just like that. Snap of the finger, blink of an eye, the whole thing is done. From that point of view. Again, this is incomprehensible to the human mind. So imagine just when you go to Parbrahma, what it's like. And then when you go to the fourth realm, universal soul realm, the collective of souls, and you become one with all the others. And then you realize they're all versions of you. Even that is amazing. All what you so cherish, your individuality, your identity, your uniqueness, you're nothing of the sort. You're one of countless many, all just like you. There's definitely no ego there. Everybody else is the same as you. There can be no room for anything special about you. You're not special there at all. You're just part of the collective of soul. Imagine. So all the things we cherish here fall away. But what you don't understand is, accompanying this delusion that you have while you're here are wonders to behold there that cannot be explained to you. Because when you lose the agitation of having to do stuff, having to survive, having to attain something, when you become still and more still, there's such a peace accompanying that stillness. It really cannot be explained, because one thing that this entire creation is made up of is agitation. The agitation, this movement, this vibration, vibration energy makes things happen, makes things exist. The more still you become, the more peaceful, non-agitation state you attain. That's why Satgurus is called the motionless plane. Why do they call it the motionless plane? Because it represents perfect stillness. So what is Satgurus? It's not a place. It's a state of existence of perfect stillness, of consciousness. The conscious not trying to achieve anything or attain anything or explore anything. It is in perfect bliss. And what do we mean by bliss? It is perfectly still. Non-agitation in any way. And this after having all this time spent in an agitated state of having to go from A to B and achieving something, you get to a point now where there's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to go to. You're at perfect peace. This type of peace is incomprehensible to the mind. But the soul welcomes it, this stillness, because it means it can completely rest. That's why I think Guru Arjan said that the Satgurus is a place of rest. So they call it the motionless plane, a place of rest. Rest from what? Activity, doing something, having to achieve and attain something. This is very stressful. Even if it's enlightenment you're trying to attain, it's still stressful. It's a hassle. Imagine you have nothing to attain. You could just enjoy being. And remember, you are everything. You can explore if you want to, but you don't even explore. You are immediately aware of everything around that you are, that you represent. Right? That awareness of enjoying your own existence is something, again, you cannot understand. Because you don't like your existence right now. You see it as limited. Imagine you had unlimited existence. And you could be aware of no boundaries to your infinite glory. And you can just enjoy your own infinite glory. Would that not be the ultimate pleasure? It does not require a second one. It doesn't require something else to make you happy. That's where unhappiness comes, when you depend on something else. This is self-sufficient, self-sustained. Yeah? That is the wonder of Satgurus and beyond. Ready? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I've got one final question.
Okay, yeah.
But there's 3 questions
related
okay. to it, if that makes sense. And there's a bit of a paragraph of some info.
Okay.
So here we go. This is metaphysical philosophy.
Okay.
I have recently been listening to the teachings of Bashar, channeled by Darrell Anker, who claims to be communicating with an extraterrestrial being from the assassinized civilization. While I remain open-minded regarding such claims, I have found that some of the teachings interesting and thought-provoking. Bashar's core principles include, which are 5. 1. You exist. 2. Everything is here and now. 3. The one is all, and the all is one. 4. What you put out is what you get back. And 5. Everything changes except these fundamental principles. He also teaches that one should follow their highest excitement or passion while acting with integrity and without attachment to specific outcomes. In addition, he teaches that reality consists of an infinite number of parallel realities of timelines, and that what we experience as time is our consciousness shifting through different versions of reality. He suggests that all beings are ultimately expressions of a single consciousness, experiencing itself from countless perspectives across different dimensions, realms, and possible versions of reality. So the first question is, regardless of whether Bashir's claimed origin is genuine, do these teachings appear compatible with Sant?
They're not incompatible, but they're incomplete. Everything he says is true. If you look at the karmic realms, if you look at the way the world is organized here in the physical, yes, it's absolutely correct. But there's no methodology of transcending all of this and knowing thyself as soul. That part is missing. This is very much a mindfulness philosophy that explains things how they are. It's observational philosophy, in which, from the astral realm, because remember this physical world is created from the astral realm. It's a projection of one of the states of existence in the astral realm. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, let's say, then all of this is true, but it doesn't offer any enlightenment. That's like me describing a tree in the garden. And I describe this tree standing there, it's green, it's brown, it has this and that. Yes, and then what? Right? The tree exists, the tree has branches, it has leaves, it has roots, it photosynthesizes to get energy. Okay, I'm describing a process of everything that it is. What's my part in all this? What have I to do with it? So that part is missing. But yes, he's describing correctly about the single consciousness. He's talking about the functioning within the karmic realm, how it works. That's all correct. You know, when it comes to aliens, you know, when somebody has a mystical experience within them, without the guidance of a perfect living master, they will put it down to whatever fancy they think it is. In his case, I think he's mentioning about the Esasani civilization or something. He's read up. Esasan. So he's read up about these theoretical civilizations and assumed that the guide or the one who's showing him this is from there.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any difference. But what he's saying is correct. And anyone reaching the astral realm, looking down into the physical, will see the same things. Will see that. So he's not discouraged. But what is seriously lacking is, so what?
Okay.
What do we do about it?
Okay, I'll go on to the second part. Yes. Are there multiple dimensions, realms, or parallel realities within and beyond the physical world? And is there any truth to the idea of multiple possible futures and timelines?
Yes, the answer.
Okay.
There are multiple versions of this creation existing in this physical realm. Yeah, there are multiple universes butted up against each other, like bubbles in a sponge, and they all have a version of reality. Yes, that's true. With multiple outcomes. In fact, every possible outcome exists. So when you look at why did it happen this way, because in this particular outcome, that was the story. If you go somewhere else to another universe, you'll see the same story, the same thing ended in a slightly different outcome. And there are infinite numbers of them.
Okay.
Are they all being played out as well?
Yes. Yeah, all possibilities exist.
Okay, the final question in this metaphysical philosophy. How can a spiritual seeker determine whether teachings from such sources contain genuine spiritual truth while remaining grounded in authentic spiritual practice?
I would say do the best you can to practice what you've been taught to the extent of its possibility. Once you've reached to the point where it can offer you nothing more, then move on. Trust the inner pull within you as to which direction you should be taking and where you should go. You can't really act with any other means because everything has been scripted and determined already. But as an individual in this life, all you can react is what you feel inside. If you're drawn to one thing or another, go that way. There's no right and wrong way. Each one of us has a unique journey and script to follow. No two are alike. Sometimes you may do something similar to somebody else is doing. So for example, you may be initiated by a particular master today, but your individual lives are still different. Even your journey and the path is different. The way you came into the creation is the way you go back. That's first thing. That's why it's difficult to say that this is the way it's going to happen to you when you go back. This is what you're going to see. This is what's going to happen to you. It can't be like that. There are some similarities. You know, we know that there's different regions of consciousness, and we've divided them into what goes on there. But your particular journey is unique to you. No two are alike. So, yeah, I mean, I think the person, rather than saying is it genuine or not, trust their feelings. If that appeals to them, they cannot help but follow it. What can they do if it appeals to them? If it doesn't appeal to them, move on. Yeah? Don't try to analyze too much. We love to play this game, analyzing too much. But even that's written for them. If they want to torture themselves with analysis leads to paralysis. Yeah? So if they want to do that, fine, then they don't do anything.
I guess if they're destined to be pulled to it, they will. If they won't.
They'll naturally feel a pull.
Yeah.
Even that, there are maybe several knowers in this world. People have reached a state of full enlightenment, but not all can be masters. Mm. And then, if you meet a knower, you may be pulled to them or not. Yeah, because it depends on your karmic relationship. Karma rules here, no matter what. So just because there's a master sitting in a far off land somewhere, doesn't mean automatically you have to chase that one. If you don't feel the pull, then that master can do nothing for you, because your time has not come with that individual. But you might meet another master somewhere and you have an immediate connection. Then you have to go with the feeling that's within you. Because that's the true you. You can't do what other people are doing and follow them, because that's not for you. Always follow what the true feeling is for you and exhaust it to the nth degree. And only then, when you're tired of that, if necessary, move on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That was the last
Anybody
question.
else have any questions?
Can I just ask one very small question? For a human birth to take place here, would I be right in thinking that your astral form would need to go to sleep? Is that sleeping at the time? They can't be active at the same time.
Why not?
Oh, okay.
If you have multiple parts to you, you can be active all at the same time. This is a very human thinking of lineage. You know, like you have to have stop one thing to start another. It's not. You have multiple forms of existence. For example, what is the soul doing in Parbrahm whilst you are here playing around with phantom character? The soul is watching it all, enjoying it all. Yeah? So the soul is doing its thing. Your causal form, the creative power, is enjoying itself in its own thinking and creative realm. So it's not that one goes to sleep and the other one wakens. They all happen at the same time. They're all doing their bit. But they are connected. They support each other. So they won't do anything that counteracts the other one. It's all supportive. Yeah. So it's all supportive in the sense of how they interact. But you don't know the interaction of all that until you're there. So for example, when you meet your astral form there, you become the astral form. Then what happens is you carry on doing. So what you're doing, so when you go back there, all you're doing is leaving the attention of the body and placing your awareness now in the astral form. So now you're aware of your astral form. You don't physically go anywhere. The body, if you watch a meditator, they're sitting here, not moving anywhere. Then the attention goes there, and that means you become aware of that side to you. You see? And the role and the things you're doing there are unique to that particular existence. Which again, the master will get you to interact, because when you've left the physical and you go to the astral realm, what's there to do in the physical? Nothing. Now you have a new life in the astral, or your continuation of your life. Right? Because the average lifespan is about 3,000 years in the astral form for hundreds of lives here in the physical. So you're carrying on your existence there. Imagine if you suddenly ceased to exist there, you could not exist here. The whole chain of interconnectedness happens from Parbrahm down. Nothing can go to sleep or stop. If the mind even stops thinking for a moment from the causal realm, you cease to exist. So even at the causal realm, your mind is constantly thinking.
My thought was, like the physical. Once you go to sleep in the physical, it opens up a dream world.
Yes, but you're still in the physical.
But you're still in the physical. But
and you're still sleeping in the bed.
I know.
And you're still having associations.
Yeah.
It's just the attention that is moved.
Yeah.
But that's because the physical is limited. So we physically go to sleep. In the astral realm, you don't need to go to sleep. There's no such thing as sleep. You're always awake, right? And life there is very different. So you are there undergoing a supportive role to what's going on here. Your life there is exactly the same as here. It's a mirror, but it's conducted there spiritually. So your actual life here is happening there. But your attention is here in the physical. Yeah? So it's not like they're even separate. Your life there and your life here are intertwined. It's just that that is done in a spiritual way, as the origin of this one. And then, but even that one has an origin. The thoughts that you're thinking about in the causal realm are generating your astral form to operate. Yeah? And the astral form's operation is generating the movements and thoughts here in the physical. So you could say they're all one, or you could say that they are separated by these levels of consciousness, but they're all constantly active. There's no sleeping business. Alright? Anything else? No? Okay, so let's go for lunch now. So happy to see you all, and hope to see you again in a few months' time.
So dehi paje har ki sev bhajo gobind phul mat ja मानस जानम का यही